and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
Always live on the free Odyssey app.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
A pick six for the Steelers on the first play of the game.
And the ball is out, and the Steelers pick it up. And that's T.J. Watt running for the end zone. Steelers with the touchdown.
Fire Canada. Black and yellow.
Combine that with the injury to Nick Chubb, and that was a night the Browns would soon forget.
The Saints are 2-0 after a 2017 win in Carolina.
I want to move on to the Bills. The Washington Commanders.
You are now going to face a defensive line that is really, really scary. And that's something that you're going to have to worry about. The Bills' offensive line is going to have to come to play again, much like they did this past week.
Mike Danger.
Bills fans climbing the fence to be able to be in the construction site.
Gene Battaglia.
The legend of the game. Can somebody get him a nice seat in a suite?
The unfortunate injury sustained by Matt Savoy.
Mel Tucker has responded to Michigan State informing him he'll be fired.
I guess if you're watching right now, or you just want to see, I look like a lobster right now.
You survived? You got the savage tan?
No, I'm burned.
95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
Love football season. Favorite time of year. We're in the middle of it right now. Fall is awesome. We're just, it's a deluge of football, college and pro. But I got to tell you, when you have something like what happened last night, it reminds you how fleeting a career is in the NFL, how quickly things can change in the NFL. I don't know how you felt watching Monday Night Football last night, but man, after seeing that injury to Nick Chubb, my heart sank. I've never met Nick Chubb. I'm not a Browns fan, but if you're a football fan, you can appreciate what that guy means to the league, how that guy goes about his business. Man, I felt gutted after that.
Do the Browns use their out next year? That would be very Brownsy, right? They have an out here where they could save some cap. I haven't seen if the official word, but and I have seen the replay. And good on ABC last night not showing that, but the timing of Joe Buck saying, now we're not going to show you the replay. And then you hear they showed it on the screen. Oh!
The reaction. Hey, say what you will about Steelers fans, but I think they recognizes real. And when you see how they reacted to Nick Chubb, a rival, who's just one hell of a football player, knowing after they saw that replay, oh God, he may have played his last snap in the NFL here in Pittsburgh. The ovation they gave him as he was leaving the field was all class. So that was, man, I don't want to say that was the highlight from last night, but that was certainly that would be the memorable, lasting image from last night. It was one of those gruesome injuries that you just can't shake. You'll always remember the Theismann injury, the injury sustained by Alex Smith in eerily similar fashion. When you see those injuries, Willis McGahee, you remember those injuries like, oh God, and you just never wish that on anybody, let alone your favorite football player or just somebody that you know is good and brings a lot to the field each time that they step on it. So we'll dive into a little bit of what we saw as Week 2 came to its conclusion last night with a doubleheader on Monday Night Football. And, of course, we're going to look ahead to Week 3 and the Buffalo Bills traveling to Washington, D.C., to take on the Commanders. We welcome you into the Sports Bar. It's Danger and Battaglia. We sound our best in the free-to-download Odyssey app. We appreciate you listening locally at 95.7 FM and AM 950. You got us on your smart device when you ask it to play 95.7 The Fan and our video stream at The Fan Rochester on YouTube and on Twitch. A reminder that when we get to 1,000 combined followers and subscribers on both platforms, between both platforms, Gino and I will get on stage and sing a karaoke rendition of Benny Mardones's Into the Night.
I am not on board with that. You're
working against me here. Don't work against me. We're trying to grow an audience, build a community.
I will sing a song. But does it have to be that song with that creepy?
I'll sing the line that makes you uncomfortable.
Also, have you tried singing it? Like, I like the early years of Idol. I thought Idol because there was Simon just mowing people down, and I was, probably not in the demo, but I enjoyed that show. And what was the one thing they always said? I'm going to sing Whitney Houston. No, don't. It's the same thing with Benny Mardones. Have you actually tried to sing that song?
Oh, I can do it.
No, you cannot.
Well, I'm going to try.
No, you cannot hit that octave.
I'm not trying to make it to Hollywood, Gene. I'm trying to pay off on a challenge.
But that's not going to inspire people. Let's hear Mike Danger sing that.
I think that's what will inspire people, is to have us perform to the best of our abilities. I'll even take a vocal lesson if I have to.
I would like to do it with the Yacht Club band.
Oh, like with them backing us. Well, they said if we get to 1,000 that they'll be our back. They'll learn it and they'll be our backing.
I think that would be fantastic if we actually had those guys behind us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, now we've got a show. Or maybe instead of us doing it at Friday Football Talk Live, we just bum rush one of their concerts. We go up on stage and we sing Into the Night to pay off our challenge here. So help us build our community on YouTube and Twitch at The Fan Rochester. When we get to 1,000 subscribers and followers between the two platforms, we will sing Benny Mardones Into the Night on stage. At a Yacht Club concert or Friday Football Talk Live, whatever it might be. But you can be a big part of that. Just spread the word. Put a little wind in our sails. Let everybody know that you can watch the Sports Bar as well as listen in the free-to-download Odyssey app. You can watch us on Twitch and on YouTube at The Fan Rochester. Great show this afternoon, and we'll talk some of the fantasy fallout, especially from that Nick Chubb injury. Tony Cotillo of Win Daily Sports will be joining us just before happy hour this afternoon.
We're gonna make it a point to talk fantasy on Tuesdays, and certainly we love having Tony on the show. And reason as well tonight, waiver wire. So, all right, what's his name? Tony Jones from the Saints had a game in. Well, is that a 1 week kind of flyer you want to take against Green Bay? What about Cleveland's offense? Because no Nick Chubb, sure, you could plug in Ford, but is the whole thing going to fall apart? Or does everybody else kind of, we've seen this happen time and time again in sports, Danger, when your star athlete goes out, oh, we can't really rely on that anymore. Bill Simmons used to call it the Ewing theory. Like the one time the Knicks actually got to the NBA final, they didn't, under Van Gundy, Ewing got hurt, and they were an 8 seed, and somehow, wait a second, everybody got better around him. Well, maybe that happens in Cleveland, or I'm just trying to paint a pretty picture for Browns fans here, maybe. We'll talk to Tony Cotillo. Some fantasy things coming up in the 4 o'clock hour.
Yeah, and there are some injuries around the NFL to monitor that have fantasy relevance. You can talk about Saquon Barkley, who hasn't been ruled out for Thursday. This might be some gamesmanship on the part of Brian Daboll. It's a short week. The Niners and the Giants will play on Thursday night. Saquon Barkley not officially ruled out yet with that ankle injury. Austin Eckler in the Chargers, I mean, a guy who's been relatively durable through his career, who hasn't missed a lot of time. No timetable for his return, which makes you wonder, is that more than just an ankle injury? No timetable for his return. What are we talking about in L.A. with the Chargers and their star running back? So Tony Cotillo, Win Daily Sports. We'll talk some fantasy football here coming up in the 4 o'clock hour. Later this hour, as we do every Tuesday afternoon, we'll get back to talking Bills and Commanders with Matt Perino of the Syracuse Post-Standard, and we'll get his thoughts on the get-right game that we witnessed on Sunday afternoon in Orchard Park.
Yeah, I mean, that was as comfortable a win since when? Since the Steeler game last year? Sure, the opening drive for the Raiders, okay. The Bills didn't get a 4th and goal, okay. You still put up 38 points, and I don't think you barely broke a sweat in that game. So now is a tougher test. Now you go on the road. But it is a winnable game. The Bills are favored by 6.5 points. So we'll get the thoughts of Matt Perino. And yeah, we're not going to learn anything till tomorrow at the earliest, but got to monitor Leonard Floyd's situation, Micah Hyde, some of those injuries where the Bills had a clean bill of health here first 2 games. Maybe that changes a little bit this week. He's our friend. He's one of the best. Matt Perino, Syracuse Post-Standard, shortly.
You can join us anytime on the Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub Wingman line. That's 866-4FAN, award-winning barbecue from Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub. Their new location is at 135 West Commercial Street. Let's see, today is Tuesday. Taco Tuesday, weekday specials. Wacky Wing Wednesday tomorrow. Good Smoke's chicken, pork, or beef gorditas, only $3. And Wacky Wing Wednesday tomorrow, buy one, get one free wings. That's Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub, 135 West Commercial Street in ER. Happy hour after 5 o'clock, a round of shots. We'll get to more news and notes from around the NFL with appetizers and some takes on tap with I'll Drink to That. That's coming up before 4 o'clock as well.
That was just not good football. Can we just kind of be honest last night? But it was football. It was the Saints and Panthers, yawn. It was also the Browns and the Steelers. I kept getting confused. This is like silly me. Like them putting the score bug in the upper left of the other game. Like, what am I? Oh, okay.
You know, it was great monitoring along if you were following along on X last night during the game. So many Steeler fans pissed off, like, hey, ABC, knock it off with the split screen. If I want to watch that crap game, I'll go over to ESPN and watch that crap game. Like, you don't have to remind us. We know it's a doubleheader. We're fans. We want to see the Steelers. We want to see the Browns. We're not really into what's going on in Carolina. So knock it off with the split screen.
Yeah, can we put that to rest? I don't have a problem with, hey, there's just a little bit of a break and we're going to go to Van Pelt here for the update. That's fine. Not really anything update worthy. Oh, here's Bryce Young running for his life. Great,
right.
Yeah.
We don't necessarily even need the networks anymore to do split screen because so many providers and TVs now have that as an option, that if you really wanted to watch two things at once, it's not a difficult thing to do. Or you just toggle back and forth during commercial breaks like I do. It's fine. You don't have to split the screen with the garbage that you're showing on ESPN.
If you said Steeler fans, if the Bills were on, we'd be losing our minds. Like, really, like I can't. We would be furious. You're splitting the screen so we can watch Carr and the Saints. Are you kidding?
Just another example of we have run out of problems. We really have, right? Like when these become our biggest complaints in life, like, wow, we have really, really spoiled ourselves. We've completely run out of problems.
Well, look, we're also maturing too. That was an old Rome bit. Like, hey, this video will disturb you when you say, oh, and then you see the actual, like the fact they didn't show the Chubb injury last night.
Yeah, I wasn't actively seeking it, but I knew it was going to come on across my timeline at some point, and sure enough, I saw it. And when I saw it, not squeamish, just like, oh, God, that's terrible. And to hear that it was the same knee that he had reconstructed when he was at Georgia. I know that we've come a long way in terms of medical advancements, but man, it'd be shocking for me to see him make any sort of comeback. I'm sure he'll make a comeback, and we haven't heard the last of Nick Chubb, but what will Nick Chubb be after that injury last night? Man, it wouldn't surprise me at all if he's done. Like, if this is it and we don't see him again.
Yeah, and there is your shining example of both sides of the argument, right? Meaning, do you pay a running back or not? If you're a running back, I need my money as soon as possible because one play, it's all over. That's true for any football player, but particularly one that absorbs the most contact, right? And if you're an owner, okay, yeah, I'm sorry. I got to be fiscally responsible if I'm a GM where, and this would even go if the Browns somehow get production at the running back position.
And I think they will, by the way. Like, the production for them won't be a hard thing to come by when you have a good offensive line. Jerome Ford was fine last night. I mean, rushed for over 100 yards, and I have a feeling that if they don't go and bring somebody from the outside in, that Ford will be just fine behind that line. And it's the line that actually makes it go. Kareem Hunt is still out there, by the way, Browns fans. I don't know if you fashion him a phone call. Maybe he's just a phone call away. If you want.
You could trade for Cam Akers, I suppose.
Yeah,
There's
sure.
always going to be some sort of option, but in the end, unless your highest paid player in the NFL at that position in terms of guaranteed dollars, and that is still his title, unless he acts that way, starts to play that way, I don't recognize this Deshaun Watson. Now, look, the last year he was in Houston, maybe you could have realized, like, they had only 4 wins. And wins are not a quarterback stat. I get it, but I can't imagine any team quarterbacked by Josh Allen for a full season or Patrick Mahomes for a full season or any quarterback that you would consider franchise would only win 4 games. But that's what the Houston Texans did the last year that Deshaun Watson was. So
he also led the league in passing. I mean, he had more yards that season than any other quarterback.
That is true.
That is a quarterback stat. I know that wins aren't a quarterback stat, but that's a quarterback stat. I'm not defending Deshaun Watson.
Something has happened.
Yep.
And I don't know if it's coaching. I don't know if there was the layoff there that actually did him damage. Something is not right, and they've got to figure that out really fast because Are the Browns about ready to admit that we made a mistake?
They'll never admit that they made a mistake. That's the beauty of this situation, is that if you're somebody who believes that the salary cap is a myth, then you'd be the first one to say, well, they can just move on from Deshaun Watson. You just move on from him, get rid of him, trade him, find somebody that even if they were to do that, they wouldn't, because they are just so arrogant that they won't admit that they made a mistake. They won't admit that they overspent on a guy who doesn't have it, does not have it. He's missing whatever the mojo was that Deshaun Watson had earlier in his career. It's absent right now. And he's not alone. You look around the NFL and you see it. Like we talked a little bit yesterday about Justin Fields. He's lost. He's just lost. Too many cooks in the kitchen, too many voices in his head. He's holding on to the ball too long. He's not decisive. We know what an athlete he is, but they're not utilizing him that way, and he's a mess. He's an absolute mess. Very similar to what we saw out of Josh Allen in week 1. And we were saying this, like Josh Allen should talk to a sports psychologist. You have too many cooks in the kitchen. You have too many voices in his head. He's running when he shouldn't be running. He's not running when he should be running. He's forcing all of the things that we had against Josh Allen after week 1. You can see consistently around the NFL with a handful of quarterbacks. And, when you're a young, impressionable quarterback, and we saw one last night in Bryce Young, I worry about them. I don't know how they get over, how they get that confidence that you need to have to play the most important position in football.
I'm sorry, Bryce Young ain't it. They were not rushing. When they did, when they blitzed, they were getting to him, obviously. But at least they have Frank Reich there that can kind of guide the ship. Usually we have a coordinator falling right in the middle of September here, and I'm wondering who that might be. Well, heck, the Bills fired their coordinator after week 2 one year. So I'm watching Pittsburgh last night, and maybe what saved Matt Canada's job was George Pickens and that elite speed that he has. Who told you about George Pickens? I don't know. Maybe it was our show.
You had to bring him up. I mean, I was just waiting. Like, get the ball in the hands of a 6'3", 200-pound bulldog wideout with acrobatic abilities and fly paper for fingers. Let George Pickens just be George Pickens. Get the ball in his hand. I don't get it, and I know Steeler fans are frustrated with Matt Canada. Blame Canada, blame Canada. South Park song. Yeah, just ringing
Deep
in
reference,
their head. It does seem like his game plan is run, pass, punt, run, pass, punt, and there's no creativity. And Najee Harris isn't the guy. I mean, Jalen Warren looks more like RB1 than Najee Harris at this point. So, but Mike Tomlin is the head coach of this team, and he's never had a losing season. And I don't know if you knew that or not. Gets brought up from time to time. He actually sympathized with the fans, the fans who were chanting "Fire Canada" last night. Mike Tomlin saying, "Hey, look, we get it. We want them to be fat and happy and excited about what we're doing." And right now, they're not, and we need to work on that. I don't know that Matt Canada is going to lose his job because that doesn't really feel like the Steeler way. They kind of work their way through problems,
right? But ultimately, that's going to be the thing that I don't think gives the you're not developing Kenny Pickett on a timeline that you should.
And that's the funny thing about this. I mean, it's his second season, and I'm just curious at what point Steeler fans look at their organization and kind of point the finger at them and say, you know what? We were all enthusiastic about the idea of a kid from Pitt being our starting quarterback, but when you really kind of do a self-evaluation of what he is, he's a third-round talent. He's not a first-round talent. It's going to take a lot of work to get Kenny Pickett to where you want him to be. It's not insurmountable, and they've done it before. They've taken, talent, late-round talent, and turned them into superstars. It can happen for Kenny Pickett, but he's another one of those quarterbacks that I think has just way too much going on. There's too many voices in his head, and he's not able to just be who he is. And maybe you don't want him to be who he is, which is why you have the voices in his head telling him, don't pass here, pass there. Don't do – everything is to the outside. And then when you finally do get it into the hands of your playmaker, wow, brilliant, you got a touchdown. I mean, that's the struggle for the Steelers. I'm going to hold true. I think they're a 10-win team. I think they're going to figure it out. I know they haven't looked great the first 2 weeks, but they're 1-1. And I think they figure it out this season.
They still have that 2 defensive touchdowns last night.
The defense bailed them out. Defense bailed them out. I think they call that complimentary football. But the defense is still really good, even without Cam Hayward. You get them, the first play of the game is a pick 6. Oh. Yeah.
Everything you need to know about that game, though. Have you ever seen a game that, okay, we reached the end of the first quarter. Wait, there's a challenge. Nope, we're going to go back in time 30 seconds into the first quarter, and now we won it again. Yeah, it's early season football. This is, a lot of people are saying that this is the byproduct of not playing a lot of starters, and I'll listen to that to a certain extent. And I guess from the Buffalo Bills standpoint, I guess maybe that's a hope. I don't have any problem with Sean McDermott. If anything, I think he played him too much in the preseason. But now that you've shown here after week 2, after an inferior Raider opponent, you get a tougher test here with Washington coming up.
Well, let's do a little bit to preview that upcoming matchup in Washington. Matt Perino covers the Buffalo Bills for the Syracuse Post-Standard. Also does a great job on the Shout podcast as well. He'll join us next. We'll recap Sunday's win in Orchard Park. We'll look ahead to Sunday's matchup, week 3, against the Washington Commanders. Perino next in the Sports Bar. Danger and Battaglia on the Fan Rochester. Mike Danger for FanDuel Sportsbook, the official partner of 95.7 The Fan. Get ready to start the NFL week off right, because right now all customers can get a no-sweat same-game parlay for Thursday Night Football. Just place a 3-leg same-game parlay on this week's game between the Niners and Giants, and you'll get bonus bets back if you don't win. NFL same-game parlays are the perfect way to combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payday. Build your own or choose from one of the popular same-game parlays pre-built for you in FanDuel's top-rated sportsbook app. Visit FanDuel.com/Mike. That's my code. Put a little wind in the sails. You don't miss out on this chance here to get a no-sweat same-game parlay on America's #1 sportsbook, FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. 21 plus and physically present in New York. Refund issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. Max refund $5 unless otherwise specified. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369.
Odyssey has sports for every fan. update.
Buffalo Bills off today. They're 6.5-point favorites for their next game on the road against Washington. Sean McDermott knows that Washington's defensive line will pose a challenge.
Yeah, very poised, very focused, business-like approach. This week will be a big test for our offensive line. They've got a very talented, a bunch of high draft picks on their defensive front there.
Matt Perino, Syracuse Post-Standard, will join us next year in the Sports Bar. Baseball, it's the final series of the season for the Rochester Red Wings, all on the road, all in Indianapolis, beginning tonight. In the majors, all the action under lights. The Yankees are hosting Toronto, Philadelphia at Atlanta. Tampa Bay hosting the Angels. The Mets are in Miami. Sports is brought to you by GetMyPerks.com. 2-for-1 season passes to Stokey Farms. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader. The Fan, Rochester.
They've raised the bar on Rochester Sports Talk. You're in the Sports Bar with Dainter and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
It really speaks of an unselfish approach and a mindset, really, of this is what we're planning to do during the week, and then executing that on game day. I know that sounds easier than it is, but it really starts with a mindset, and then people staying as unselfish as they possibly can throughout the course of the week, when their roles may not be what they want them to be, but also remaining ready to go when their number is called in the game, whether it's early or late.
Bills head coach Sean McDermott, everybody with significant contributions to the Bills' first win of the 2023 campaign in Orchard Park on Sunday against the Raiders. We'll take a quick look back at that and start to peek ahead at Week 3 as the team travels to Washington. We welcome in Matt Perino, the Syracuse Post-Standard, and the Shout podcast for his weekly visit here into the Sports Bar. Matt, it was the true definition of a get-right game on Sunday. How are you?
I am great. And yeah, I think it didn't start that way, right? Like the first 2 or 3 minutes of that game, I feel like panic was starting to set in a little bit, and it's hard to even remember that now because of how the final 50-ish minutes of that game went. And I think that's additionally kind of like a good takeaway from that game is, this is the same team that's found a way over the last couple of years. Like even when things don't go well early, they tend to figure things out. I thought that was a big kind of step for, Ken Dorsey to have a game like that where everything he was drawing up was working and had his quarterback playing on schedule, calm, composed in the pocket. Some of the throws that he made while dealing with some pressure at times, which I did think the offensive line played well. But all things considered, I mean, where they were and where they ended up, really good week too.
Yeah, and I guess there's no answer to this when I ask you this question, but Josh Allen, he'll throw you one of those games like he had in week 1 every so often. Is there any rhyme or reason to that, Matt, why, every once in a while we still get bad Josh popping up? Because to me, okay, this is fine. This is the way it should look. And I would think that this will be kind of now more of the norm. But at some point, I'm just wondering if Josh has actually learned here.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was a lot at play in that first game the more we think back to it. And, Monday Night Football, the eyes of the country on you. I was listening to T.J. Watt before the game yesterday. He went on the Rich Eisen show on the radio, and he was talking about, he's been in this league a long time. He's seen different players handle that Monday Night Football game differently, and there were so many expectations heaped upon the Bills going into that game and, what that was supposed to be. And I think, I don't think Josh did this consciously, this Aaron Rodgers versus Josh Allen, but I wouldn't blame him necessarily if he got into a place where he said, I have to do the things in this game to win this game for my team. I mean, it's Aaron Rodgers versus Josh Allen. And, they do a good job of downplaying all those storylines throughout the week. But that's the only real explanation for me to why he went out there and played the way that he did consistently. And, he said something really good on Wednesday. I thought the way that he recalibrated off of that game was impressive. And he said, listen, I'm going to be in this league. If I'm in this league, lucky enough to be in this league a long time, I'm going to have these games where, I got to bounce back. And he almost enjoys that process, that humbling process, and being able to kind of appreciate when things go well like they did on Sunday. He mentioned that as well. So it's kind of the experience. I mean, he's said a million times you don't want to ride the roller coaster in this league, but I think Josh Allen is one of the top attractions when it comes to roller coasters in this league.
Matt, it felt like a lot of Buffalo Bills had their best games of their career against the Raiders. We didn't hear Max Crosby's name at all. He was wiped off the planet by Spencer Brown. James Cook goes for over 100. Terrell Bernard gets his first interception for the Bills defense there at middle linebacker. Am I missing anybody? And do you agree that a handful of Buffalo Bills had their best games of their career against the Raiders on Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, there was a couple. You mentioned them there. I mean, Khalil Shakir,
yes,
reappeared in a big way, in a big spot. And, it's funny because, like, you look at how much time we spent talking about Trent Sherfield and Deontay Hardy. And if you take the first two games, Khalil Shakir made the biggest impact play of the three of them. And listen, Hardy, I actually, was watching the Commanders game against the Broncos, and there was a play where Marvin Mims absolutely scooted past Emmanuel Forbes and just left him in the dust. And I wonder if this week Hardy doesn't get a chance to maybe attack the third level with his speed. We haven't seen that yet. They've been mostly using him in that short to intermediate area. I was really hard on AJ Epinesa in week one. I went back and watched the game, and I thought he had a couple of really good pass rush snaps, which is important. He's not getting a lot of opportunities, and those opportunities are probably going to shrink depending on what happens with Leonard Floyd. Obviously, with the ankle injury, maybe there's an opportunity there. But when Von Miller comes back, you think everybody's snap share kind of dwindles a little bit, and so that's an important game for an AJ Epinesa, who is probably going to have to, keep Kingsley Jonathan from taking that active spot. I mean, he went out there this week and offered more value to this team in the way that he prepared Spencer Brown, who you mentioned, on the scout team, giving him all the Max Crosby moves. And I kind of like we do the subtext now, the Shout Insider text group, and somebody said, "Man, how can Kingsley Jonathan not get on the field if he's able to replicate all these Max Crosby moves? Why not see those moves in a game against an opposing team?" And I think that's interesting. I think that Epinesa, there's some pressure on him to continually, build some momentum this season. I thought that was a pretty good game too for him.
Yeah, Matt, I am excited to see when Von Miller comes back, and you have on the opposite side Greg Rousseau. Greg Rousseau, to me, seems like he's taken a step here from year 2 to year 3.
Yeah, I mean, he's been consistently, with his length, he's such a problem. And the way that Eric Washington teaches, or emphasizes, I should say, all the pass rushers getting their hands up in this league, with the way that quarterbacks can navigate the pocket. It's so important. We saw it play out. I mean, two huge plays, A.J. Epinesa on third down, and then Rousseau, who ended up popping that one up to Terrell Bernard, who got his first career interception. Rousseau's length and just presence, like I feel like he has, it's not football IQ, but it's just like general spatial awareness that I feel like puts him in a good spot most of the time on his rushes that just ends up impacting quarterbacks. And this week against a guy like Sam Howell, who's had a really nice start these first 2 weeks for the Commanders, has them out at a 2-0 start, some really some good games, especially last week. I mean, I was actually really impressed with the Commanders' offense going back and watching them. But he's going to face a pass rusher. I mean, it's different than anything he's faced. It's different than a Randy Gregory. It's different than a lot of what the Broncos brought last week, which, by the way, the Broncos had a lot of success. I mean, they ratcheted up the pressure. They got him to the ground a couple times, and the Bills have to do that to have success in this game, because that defensive front for the Commanders might be the best that they play all year in terms of just top four. When they're out there, the overwhelming problem that creates for your offensive line. And listen, the Bills' offensive line is coming off a really good performance, and so I think that is good news for the Bills. But yeah, you can't say enough about where Rousseau is. He's got to continue to bring this, and I think when Vaughn does get back, that's going to be really fun to see what this defensive line looks like, because they haven't even asked like a guy like Jordan Phillips to really have a huge role yet in that second wave. They've almost been leaning more on like Settle and Poona Ford in that spot, and Shaq Lawson has had some run as well. So a lot of depth on this line, something we talked about all offseason.
Yeah, Matt, and there still are some questions with this roster and the Buffalo Bills, and specifically I want to zero in on corner. Trey White, man, I want to see Trey White be the Trey White that we saw before the ACL injury. I still haven't seen it, and he didn't look good early in that game, and no, he was probably very frustrated with his performance. Christian Benford has been a revelation, is not just the best corner on the Bills right now, one of the best corners in the league right now, depending on which metrics you're looking at, and what to make of Kyer Elam not being able to get a jersey on Sunday. What's your take on the corner position right now with the Buffalo Bills heading into Week 3?
Yeah, that's some high praise for Christian Benford that you're handing out here right now. I think he's been solid. I thought that there were some moments in coverage against the Raiders that, there's going to be those moments. You're going to get lined up against an elite wide receiver on the other end, and you're going to have to battle. And luckily for him, none of those plays, like I think there was the one Adams play where it looked like maybe a completion, and they called pass interference, and they picked up the flag, and they called it a completion, and it wasn't. So like those little plays, like we'll see what as we get more of a sample size how that materializes. But Trey White, on the other hand, yeah, it's just he hasn't looked like the same player, and I don't know. I don't know how much that has to do with maybe Poyer and Hyde not being the same version of the players that they were back in 2021 when this group was playing at a really high level, and it was Levi Wallace was the guy that everybody was, fan-wise, it felt like anyway, trying to find a new answer. But I'm not closing the door on White finding some level of sustainable success. I think that we forget that he only played half a season last year. And I think that by the time you get to December is when you're really going to zero in on him, the level at which he's playing with. And now, listen, I get the frustration because they're going to play a lot of top-tier quarterbacks and offenses. And if there are any weak links in that back four there, that's not going to be good news against the Patrick Mahomes of the world, Joe Burrow, if that Cincinnati offense can figure it out, Lamar Jackson, Tua in a couple weeks here. So, yeah, Trey White is going to be I wish I had more to say about Trey, like maybe what's going through his head or his mind. He doesn't talk to the media. He's refused every interview request going back to the start of the off-season program. Did again on Sunday, was the first one out of the locker room, I think, or one of the first. Yeah. So there's only so much I could tell you about what's going on in the mind of Trey White, but we'll continue to ask the coaches about it.
Yeah, Matt, I'm going to break protocol here and we'll ask you questions about Washington this week. Matt Perino, Syracuse Post-Standard. You brought up Tua and the Dolphins. There they are at the top of the division. They come in 2 weeks, and with the speed they present on the outside, that looks like that's going to be a problem. What is that atmosphere? What is that game going to look like here in 2 weeks?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we talked about a little bit earlier is going to be ultimately the deciding factor in this game. How are the Bills able to affect Tua, and how are they able to tackle once the ball is in some of the these playmakers' hands? I think one of the strengths of Bernard's game is his ability to maybe be a little bit quicker to react, in that middle, short, intermediate area, which is, going to be his first true test. I mean, they'll have a mini one this week. Curtis Samuel is, a nice little player in that area. They do some things with their running backs, but with Mostert and Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, and even like Craycroft, the Barrio, some of their smaller receivers, and they have talented players everywhere in that offense. So they're going to be tested. I think that the Miami Dolphins defense looked a lot better in week 2, but still some opportunities will be there for Josh Allen in this offense. I don't think that this unit has the kind of talent on the back end outside of maybe a Javon Holland and at times Xavier Howard that's going to be able to really clamp things down. And outside of Andrew Van Ginkel, I was actually under impressed with their defensive line. And by the way, Van Ginkel, what a luxury it is for them to have a guy kind of waiting in the wings when, a guy like Jalen Phillips, who's been so good early in his career, you can go to him when Phillips can't play. Obviously, they still have Bradley Chubb, who continues, in my opinion, to be a little bit underwhelming, especially for the money that they paid him. That's going to be a massive game, and really going to set the stage for who the early favorite in the division is. I mean, if we're sitting there and the Bills are at 2-2, let's just say they beat the Commanders and lose to the Dolphins, and the Dolphins are sitting there at 4-0. I mean, man, the narrative is going to shift dramatically if it hasn't already started to.
So let's focus in now on Washington, this week's opponent. You mentioned the defensive line. It might be the best defensive line that the Bills face all season long. I'm curious as to how the Bills' defense will perform against Sam Howell. You said you went back and watched his tape from Week 2 against the Broncos. What kind of challenges will this Commanders' offense present to the Bills come Sunday?
They're really persistent running attack, right? Like with Gibson and then Robinson, like they have a couple of guys that, whenever either one is out there, they're going to get tough yards. They're going to take on physical contact, and just like they did against Josh Jacobs this last week. The Bills have to do a good job of tackling and not giving second opportunities, and making things ugly right off the jump. And I think it was Josh McDaniels. I was listening to his post game, and it's like they couldn't get the ball in Josh Jacobs' hand without there being a Bills defensive player ready to meet him before the line of scrimmage. And to me, that's what frustrates a run game and takes teams out of their plan, is when you can do that early and then put a little pressure on with your offense. The Bills have to do that because, I think the Commanders ended up the Broncos went up early and the Commanders hung around, then came back, and I think part of that was their run game, and they're going to lean on those screen passes. You can't get beat by too many of those. Like I think back to that Breece Hall screen pass, maybe a Dalvin Cook one as well in Week 1. Those are the kinds of things that sustain drives, that kill defenses and momentum. So they're going to have to deal with that. And then Terry McLaurin is a legit number one. And you mentioned that Trey White concern. Like there is no weeks off, it feels like, for this kind of first half of the season. I mean, it's going to go from Garrett Wilson to Devontae Adams to now Terry McLaurin, Tyreek Hill. Then it's for the Jags, Calvin Ridley, who's now a serious problem. Trey White is going to be tested week after week, and they showed that he can make a big play late in the game, and they're not going away. This Commanders offense does not go away. I think Eric Bieniemy has them playing some pretty good ball. There's a lot of confidence with Sam Howell. They have Logan Thomas. I don't know his status, former Bills tight end. He had a great touchdown catch and got absolutely popped. Kareem Jackson got kicked out of the game for it, and I think he left the game as well. But everywhere you look, playmakers, and even when you go up on their team, with the way their defense plays and can turn the ball over and can sack the quarterback and can pressure the quarterback, this has to be another Josh Allen dialed in, like, efficient effort. Because if you turn the ball over and you give that offense more life, that's when problems are just going to really start to bubble up, especially at their place. They played a tough game last year against Commanders.
Yeah, Matt Perino, Syracuse Post-Standard, our guest. Matt, you go on the road for the majority of these games, and certainly one thing that's kind of changed over recent years, the Bills have become kind of a team that travels here, so to speak. When the Bills are playing in Nashville, feels like there's a majority of Bills fans. I don't know what to expect this week, to be honest, because I would think, like, if this were Daniel Snyder, his Washington football team, that, all right, maybe the Bills fans take over there. And I don't know if there's this renewed sense, and I guess we'll kind of learn a little bit more about it. But what's your kind of expectation as far as what kind of environment the Bills are heading into this Sunday?
It's going to be nasty. I was actually asking my sister and brother-in-law if they were planning to go to the game. They live in Virginia, and they're like, "Nah, there was a fight on the news from opening week that's kind of scared them off." And it reminds me of kind of like the Raiders lore, it is a tough fan base. It is a very nasty environment, but I do think the Bills are going to travel well for Bills fans. They do, no matter what. They find a way to get into the mix a little bit, which could make for a really dramatic deal. But, I think about that too. And we saw that story out of, New England with the fan that passed away. And there was apparently a couple fights going on in the stands. I don't know, I feel like it's great. These really passionate fan bases that, kind of get into it in the stands. You see the viral videos, but man, you see something like that and it kind of gets you pause a little bit. Keep it to within means here.
Well, Matt, let's not bury the lead. You're talking about fights in the stands in Washington and New England. Did any fan base have a fan cover himself in feces while coked out and try to get into a construction site? Nobody's doing it the way the Buffalo Bills do it. Let's be honest.
The nuts and bolts of that story are just the most Buffalo Bills Mafia fan story of all time. You get covered in that, and then you just want to go take a dip in the pool of water at the bottom of the big hole where they're going to put the new stadium. I mean, I'm surprised. Actually, what's really interesting is that there wasn't a story that came out yesterday of somebody trying to set up a table down in that hole and filming that and going through the table. And I don't want to put that idea out there. Actually, I shouldn't have said that. But it's just debauchery at the highest level. It was turned up at the stadium. You could feel the energy, and I felt like the Bills matched it in the stadium.
Yeah, Matt, and again, if you don't want to comment on this, but I mean, has there ever been like a worst PR week for the Buffalo Bills franchise where, okay, the number 4 thing on the list might have actually been, hey, you were upset on Monday Night Football and it was a bad loss. Then you go to the Trotter thing that came out the next day. Then you actually have the hot mic with Matty Collab. We feel terrible. Oh, and then that's not enough. We have this idiot going over the fence. Oh, and I forgot about Tequila Spikes. How could I forget about that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was 5 for 5 there, right? Like really brutal week. The Matty Glab situation, man, it really, you just feel bad for all parties involved. It was a no-win situation for anybody. And, I've said this before. I think I said it on a radio show in Vegas last week. I've said things, I think we've all said things at work, like talking to coworkers, that if anybody heard it, would probably be like, it reminds you of like, hey man, like, we live in a different world. We live it like a lot of times you're saying stuff that don't have real meaning. You're just, talking trash, talking whatever, water cooler stuff, right? I've been there, and, I know Maddie, and I feel for her. I also feel for Diggs because, listen, when there's a narrative that persists about a person, and, we talked about it plenty over the offseason, like a guy had some problems in Minnesota. They've been documented, and, now it starts to permeate out there that maybe unhappy in the current spot and, this malcontent storyline. And then you hear something like that, and it almost unintentionally like perpetuates that narrative again. And so, again, no party won, I feel like, in that situation. And,
Matt, what do you got coming up here for the Shout podcast this week that we can look forward to?
Yeah, so I got some cool shows coming up. We'll have tomorrow, we'll have the Staples Show. Tomorrow morning, I'm actually linking up with ESPN's John Keim to get a view into the Washington Commanders 2-0 start. So that'll be a cool podcast. And then we'll have the preview show on Friday. Saturday, I don't know what it's going to look like yet. Ryan and I are hosting a Q&A with Eric Wood, Eric Mold, Lee Evans, and Aaron Williams, I believe.
Sweet.
Wow.
At the bullpen in D.C. So that's going to be a cool event. We might film something there, podcasty. I'm not sure, but if you're going to be in the area and you want to come out, we'll be there. It's going to be a fun time Saturday night.
Nice. Well, safe travels down, and love hearing the stories when you're on the road. Matt, really appreciate your time as always today, bud.
Anytime, guys. Take care.
You got it. There he is, Matt Perino, Syracuse Post-Standard, covering the Buffalo Bills, also on the Shout podcast, traveling to D.C. for the matchup against the Commanders here coming up on Sunday afternoon. You'll be able to hear the action, by the way. Pregame starts at 9 o'clock Sunday morning, kickoff just after 1 on the Fan, Rochester.
Yeah, it's funny how when we always look at who is the Bill under the microscope. And after week 1, well, obviously it was Josh Allen, but we were looking at Spencer Brown. Certainly Terrell Bernard. Was the run defense his fault on those 2 big runs? All those are answered. We've now shifted our attention. And look, I said this over the summer. I had this take over the summer. I thought Tre'Davious White, because of the cap situation, because of the, you don't want to be paying at that age at that position, he wasn't going to be on this team next year. So I said that back in May, not knowing where he was at. But it's bothering him, the fact that, and I'm glad Matt confirmed that. Like,
he's not talking to anybody.
He's not talking to anybody.
The life cycle of a corner, man, you can bank on it. And Trey is a great example of it. A more recent example that we can just put our jeweler's eye on and look at it and examine it closely, because when he came into the league, he was magnificent. All kinds of physical ability. He had the speed, and the technique only got better with each passing game. And then you get to the peak where your athleticism and your technique are top-notch. And then as you get older, and then as injuries happen, well, then your physicality starts to go away. You start to see the player shy away from contact. You start to see the player miss a step. And the technique is still there. You didn't forget the technique. Trey White has the technique, but the physical elements of his game, that's what's got to be frustrating him, because it's out of your control, man. You're injured. You're coming back. You're not a rookie anymore. But you want to play like you're a rookie, and that's maddening. It's frustrating, and it's worth paying attention to here. I saw some PFF grades on Christian Benford cross my feed. I'm like, whoa, Christian Benford's having himself a nice start to the season for the Buffalo Bills.
He's the top corner on the team
right now. He's playing like cornerback one. Yeah, he's having the best season so far.
Same draft class as Kyrie Elam. And look, maybe corner is that position that, all right, let's take a corner at the end of every draft. Tre'Davious White, if the Bills were to move on after the season, it would be a $10.3 million cap hit. But it's like 16.3 to carry him on the road. So it's a damn if you do, damn if you don't.
A lot of football left to be played before that decision needs to be made. Appreciate Matt Perino stopping by to share his Bills knowledge with us here in the Sports Bar. We're going to take a break and come back with more next. Our 4 o'clock hour will include some news and notes from around the NFL. We'll have a conversation with Tony Cotillo, our fantasy football Goomba from Win Daily Sports. Tony checks in from Philadelphia here in the 4 o'clock hour as well. We'll have some takes on tap. And Gino, I know we kind of already know what our survivor pick is, but I don't want to deprive you of the announcement.
Listen, look. Did Brandon Bean listen? Listen. This is a week where there are a lot of options.
Okay.
There are.
We'll dissect those options.
The options are there, but the choice is clear.
The choice is an easy one. We'll get to that with Gino's Survive an Advanced pick for week 3. You can join us anytime at 866-4326. That's 585-866-4FAN. More next in the Sports Bar. Danger and Battaglia on the Fan Rochester.
Odyssey has sports for every fan.
Always live on the free Odyssey app.
The Fan Rochester Sports Update.
Bills players off on a Tuesday, back at practice tomorrow. Coming off the win over the Raiders, head coach Sean McDermott taking pride in stopping the run.
You take pride in things, and certainly there's good players on the other side of the ball every week. And this week there's another good back or two that Washington has. So it'll be another challenge for us this week. And stopping the run is huge to control the line of scrimmage.
Bills and Commanders will have the call Sunday at 1 o'clock. Pre-game coverage begins at 9 a.m. Rochester Red Wings have 1 week left in their season. It begins tonight in Indianapolis. News out of Tampa Bay today where the Rays are finally going to get their new stadium, $1.2 billion in St. Petersburg. The team will stay in that area. Gene Battaglia in the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
A pick six for the Steelers on the first play of the game.
And the ball is out, and the Steelers pick it up. And that's TJ Watt running for the end zone. Steelers with the touchdown.
Fire Canada, black and yellow.
Combine that with the injury to Nick Chubb, and that was a night the Browns would soon forget.
The Saints are 2-0 after a 2017 win in Carolina.
I want to move on to the Bills. The Washington Commanders.
You are now going to face a defensive line that is really, really scary. And that's something that you're going to have to worry about.
The Bills' offensive line is going to have to come to play again, much like they did this past week.
Mike Danger.
Bills fans climbing the fence to be able to be in the construction site.
Gene Battaglia.
The legend of the game. Can somebody get him a nice seat in the suite?
The unfortunate injury sustained by Matt Savoy.
Mel Tucker has responded to Michigan State informing him he'll be fired.
I guess if you're watching right now or you just want to see, I look like a lobster right now.
You survived? You got the savage tan?
No, I'm burned.
95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Unpopular opinion? I liked the Cleveland Browns uniforms last night. They were getting crushed online.
Wait. It just depends on who's your feed. I saw a lot of people liking it.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, as soon as they were unveiled in the summer, if we may start this hour with a little bit of hot uniform talk here in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia, I actually thought that they looked sharp last night. And when they were unveiled, I'm like, those are gonna kill. Those are gonna be great. I have a take on just alternate uniforms in general coming up here in just a few. We welcome you in to Hour 2 in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia. We'll talk some fantasy here before 5 o'clock with our fantasy Goomba. Tony Cotillo of Win Daily Sports joins us.
I don't think we ever called him the fantasy Goomba.
I'm calling him that.
Yeah.
He's our fantasy Goomba. Tony, hey, Tony, he could be one of our neighbors, Gino. You know how it goes on the west side.
Listen, Tony Cotillo, he's from Philadelphia.
Yeah.
We go to Philly.
No nonsense.
No.
We're going to Philly for Tony's fantasy advice here coming up before 5 o'clock.
Sends me a note today. Hey, I'm going to be a little bit late. Tony, whatever you say, Tony.
What are you going to do? Challenge him to break your legs? We appreciate you listening this afternoon. 95.7 FM, AM 950. You can hear us in the free-to-download Odyssey app where we sound our best, or on your smart device when you ask it to play 95.7 The Fan. And we love you checking out the video stream as well. We're streaming for you at The Fan Rochester on YouTube and on Twitch. Some takes, Gino.
Yeah, some takes. And I was having a conversation today, and I don't want to say who this was because sometimes
Now, when you say that, now you have to say who it was with. You got to out the person that you're going to.
It was with Fisher baseball coach Brandon Potter. He's a listener of the show.
Hey.
Yeah. And Potter's take was how Diggs is a problem.
Okay, go on.
Yeah, well, of course, and the latest thing you put through the lens, the Bills team employee, Maddie Clabb, what she said and how this has landed her, in a little bit of trouble. Mm-hmm. And I swear this was a real conversation. And I'm just like, where are you getting this info from? Stephen A? I'm right in front of you. Okay, get your news locally. Stop. Can I make this any clearer? So what I used to do to my kids when they were younger and they weren't listening. Can I talk any clearer to you? Diggs is
you were a treat.
Not the problem. I'm sure your daughter's the same thing you do, Danger. Yeah. All right. Look, I do feel bad for Maddie Glab. Okay? But she's not going to be able to continue on in that role. I think the trust is gone, and I hope the organization reassigns her. But back to Diggs. I understand why he put it out afterward. There's this narrative about me that's not true, okay? And we've been saying this all along.
We unfairly characterized him as a problem before he came over to the Bills. Remember? I mean, we came over.
That's where we got our impression.
We got it wrong. We got our impression from how he was in Minnesota. He forced his way out. He was a problem in Minnesota. Well, it turns out Minnesota didn't really know how to manage Stephon Diggs. They really didn't know how to communicate with Stephon Diggs. I don't get any impression at all that Stephon Diggs is anything but a great teammate, a good citizen, probably a really good friend to have if you're friends with him. Like, you never hear about him getting in trouble off the field. You don't hear about anything bad about Diggs other than what you see on the sideline, which is a passionate winner. Guy wants to win.
Let's remind, okay, Stephon Diggs was the one player on January 2nd who didn't take the team flight back to Buffalo, stayed in Cincinnati. Not only that, bribed a security guard to get back just to check on Damar Hamlin. Yeah, he's a good teammate.
I think there's always going to be an element of the fan base. If things go wrong, they're going to blame Diggs, or he's just going to rub them the wrong way. And I think who you were having the conversation with matters as well. It might be a tell. It's a coach. It's a coach.
Yeah.
And a coach will look at a player like that differently, through a different lens than a fan would. If you're a coach and you have a difficult ego that you have to manage, or a personality disorder that you have to manage, that's more on you. Now, that's more on your plate, and you have to work through that. And to the Bills' credit, I think they've managed Diggs, with the exception of what happened in July, perfectly. And everything they've said about Diggs has been, I think, with the exception of July, with the exception of Sean McDermott letting his emotion get the best of him in a moment where he shouldn't have said what he said. We wish we had 100 guys like Stephon Diggs that cared as much as Stephon. Because when I hear that, that's accurate. I feel like that's the Stephon Diggs that we don't want to see, because it's easier to pin the blame on him and follow this narrative of, oh, he's a cancer. Oh, he's a bad guy. Oh, he's a me-first player. I don't believe any of that. And we were wrong. We were wrong about him when he came over from Minnesota.
Yeah, and I feel terrible for Maddie Glab, because that's a trap any of us could fall into.
No question.
She's joking around.
Gino, we're one off-caller remark from me being in your window saying you want fries with that. Don't get me wrong. I mean, we've got hot mics around us all the time. And one of these times we will get burned. We will get burned. I think it's almost an inevitability.
Don't say that.
It's almost an inevitability.
Prevent that. We can prevent that. This is the world we live in.
Right. But Maddie, I'm sympathetic to Maddie Glab's plight here, but I think Maddie's going to be fine. I think she, for what it's worth, handled it exactly the way you should handle it. She confronted it head on. She didn't make any excuses. And for what it's worth, Diggs did what he had to do, because it was what was best for Diggs, putting it out on social media, explaining that this isn't who I am, and that's why these comments hurt me. It's important that he did that as well. It reinforces what most of us know, that what she said about him isn't actually true, that he's not the guy that's going to say, F you, I'm not going to talk to you. That's not who he is.
But where do the Bills go from here? Do they bring back Glab to that same job, or do they feel like they have to make a statement to say, hey, we have to make you an example?
I don't know.
That's a tough one.
I would put her back in her same role. I think it's over. I think it's water under the bridge, and you can move on. But it would, look, what the Pagulas do with their business from time to time, we were left scratching our head, right? It wouldn't be the first time that they did something that's like, what? You did what? Why?
Well, they could reassign her. Like, all right, we're going to pay you the same, and you're just going to be in charge now of hospitality when you bring in the...
Oh, boy. Yeah.
The legend of the game.
We take care of the legends of the game, get them good seats so they can actually see the field. All right. I actually liked how the Browns looked last night in their uniforms. Not necessarily on the field, in their uniforms. It if Penn State had like an alternate Halloween getup that you would see. Like they look clean. I like the white on white. I like the white helmet. Now we're gonna have to monitor their success here in the all whites. You know, if you mock the uniform gods, Gino, there is a steep price to pay. If you look back to week 2, Atlanta bringing back the red helmet, looking sharp at a big win over the Packers. However, my Bears in their all orange getups, well, now they're 0-3 in what I consider to be the most atrocious uniform combination in the NFL. The orange helmet, the all orange.
Listen, I agree. I didn't think, like, they're going with that today?
Terrible.
That's the one uniform, like, who? What am I watching? Oh, it's the Bears.
The Browns may end up burning their all whites after how last night went. I mean, you consider that they gave up a pick 6 on the first offensive play. You lose Nick Chubb for the season, and you lose the game. But I'm willing to keep tabs on those uniforms. Unpopular opinion. I know a lot of people weren't in favor of those uniforms. They didn't like how they looked. I think they're an upgrade over their normal uniforms. I want to see them go to those uniforms full time.
Brown is a difficult color to pull off in sports. I think the Padres going back to brown because that's what that fan base wanted. They made it work. For Cleveland, brown and orange, that just, maybe in the early days of television it worked. There's a school locally that had brown and orange. It was RIT. And they're like, okay, enough. We're the Tigers. We're going to go to black and orange. But you can't go to black and orange because that's what Cincinnati has. Right. So here would be my compromise. And again, the Cleveland Browns are not named after the color. They're named after Paul Brown, the guy who owned the team.
That's right.
And he named of course, he's going to put the color of his own name on there. Why do Browns fans tolerate this terrible color scheme? Go to orange and navy.
Ooh.
If you just went to those white uniforms and that's what kind of dawned.
But now you're treading on Chicago.
Not exactly.
I mean, Chicago's a dark navy, a rich navy. You'd almost have to go orange and blue, which is more closer to what Denver has that orange and navy.
With the white helmets, though. That's where, if you stick with that.
I like the all whites. I like anything that de-emphasizes the brown in the Cleveland Browns, I think is what I'm getting at here. The orange doesn't bother me, but the all whites last night, the white helmets especially, I thought looked pretty sharp.
I got a quick non-sports take. Elon Musk gave a recent interview and says he's considering charging everyone now to use X. Apparently, you mean to tell me that not enough people paid $8 a month for your premium service? You're kidding me. If it gets to that point, Danger, let me just go on the record. No. Okay, I'll just go over to Threads or whatever.
Here's what I'll say before you complete your thought. If our fine company, Odyssey, wants to pay for us to have our X accounts moving forward, I would listen to that if they're charging monthly, because I do feel like it's something we use more than anything for our job.
That's true, and I'm not going to hold my breath on that.
I won't either.
Because there's other things what? Okay, if I go over to Threads, what if all social media sites started charging? Even better. Wait a second. What if we all got off that drug that's social media? Is that even possible? Is it too late for us?
Yeah, I think it might be it might be a bridge too far at this point. I do think, though, that Elon Musk is crazy enough to start charging people to be on his platform.
Here's the only way I would do it. And they started doing this a few years ago, and then if you had live sports. You would see Twitter, like whatever the partner was way back when on Thursday Night Football.
Baseball games on Twitter.
Yeah. Like if you had a reason to go there to pay, yes, that's premium content. I guess I would pay for if you had NFL games.
Yeah, what would life be like without social media? I tell you, I don't know, Gino. It's a hard thing to imagine. I had my wife stop me in the middle of the day on Sunday and ask me if I think about the Roman Empire every day. I guess this is a thing that's happening online right now where supposedly men think about the Roman Empire at least once a day.
Really? According to who?
Well, according to what she saw on TikTok, of course.
Oh.
So, maybe just log off of TikTok for a second.
Okay.
Maybe just log off instead of saying.
She didn't believe that, did she?
Well, she had to ask me.
Oh.
And I said, not every day. Maybe 4 or 5 times a week, but not every day.
Once a year, maybe.
I mean, if I'm watching Gladiator, then I'm thinking about the Roman Empire. Good movie.
Okay. Like
top 5.
Do I think about the Buffalo Bills multiple times a day? Of course. A lot of people do.
It's our job.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is now there are some parallels, and I even said this to her. And I said this to my daughters as well, because they were teasing me. They're like, you don't know what's going on. I'm like, if you're saying that we think about the Roman Empire in the way we view sports, then I would listen to that, because I believe our fandom scratches that itch that goes back generations and generations. It just remains in our DNA, this need for competition.
To be in the Coliseum with your fellow men.
That's right. Something that was ingrained with us generations ago, thousands of years ago, is still wired in us, hardwired in us, this need for this bloodlust for competition. So I think that still exists, and that's why for a lot of us it's hard to say, I can't get into sports. I'm not going to watch it. I'm not going to be into it. When you get into it, you get into it because it's hardwired in all of us. Probably more so men than women. I think the women probably were less enthusiastic about what was going on in the Coliseum back in those days. But if you want to say that, then I'll be like, yeah, I think about sports every day. Every day.
That, like if you watch like the 1920s World Series, like it's all dudes there.
You're right.
Like their business suits
right.
going out.
Wearing their fedoras and their business, their suits. Can you imagine going to a sporting event wearing a suit? Like as a fan. The way they used to back in the day.
Other than a wedding or a funeral, can you imagine wearing a suit?
I mean,
today?
we've really gotten casual, haven't we? We are so casual. All right, Gino, let's get into it. It's time for Week 3 in the NFL. Gino's got his survive and advance pick. We already kind of know what direction he's going, but let's go through it here because we know we have options.
We do. And again, we're not doing any Dion high step here in week 3. Our job is to get you to week 4. I'm not looking at December. I'm not looking at November. I'm not looking at October. Okay? When I'm making these picks, I'm not looking ahead. It's rule number 4. Don't save. I'm going to save this team. No, you're going to be out. Savers are losers. Very simple. We want to just do the process of elimination with us. No road teams, no divisional games. Vegas line, it's our guide, okay? You can break it here and there, but the favorite you pick must be giving more than 5. Bad defenses or bad plays. Hey, that's something we can kind of focus in on right now. Who has a bad defense, or which bad defense can you kind of go against? I don't know. The Raiders seem like a pretty bad defense.
Yes, they do.
Yeah, avoid taking the team that's playing at home for the second consecutive week. It's a proprietary one of mine. No shame in picking against the bad team week after week. And no kill shot. Do not override logic. You can go with the outlier game thinking, oh my gosh, everybody's going to be taking this game. No, don't do that. Then you yourself are knocked out. So to kind of review the rules of this game, once you choose a team, then you can't go back to them. So Baltimore this week, well, they're home against the Colts. That looks kind of tasty, but nope, we can't take Baltimore. We took them week 1. And now we can't take the Buffalo Bills. It was kind of relaxing in the second half, was it not?
You sweat a little bit that first series, Gino. I know you. You were sweating a little bit when they marched down the field.
I texted Danger, the meme of the sweating guy there at the beginning. And that's kind of my MO, okay? I'm very confident right now, but on game day, you might not want to be around me, okay? But we bring you these picks with confidence. Eliminate divisional games. Only 2 this week. Patriots, Jets, wouldn't want that. Jags, a big number over the Texans. No, I don't want that. Cross it off.
Okay.
Cross off any game that is 5 or less. Packers at home, -2 against New Orleans. Nope. Detroit, -3 against Atlanta. Nope. Cleveland, -3 against Tennessee. No way. We got to learn more about the Browns. Vikings, Chargers, pick 'em.
Wow.
No, oh, boy. Got thoughts on that a little later. Eliminate any road favorite. The Steelers are actually favored on the road against the Raiders. That's your Sunday night game. No, stop. No way do I want that. Danger leads us with 5 choices this week. 5. What about the Niners? Giants are getting +10, okay? And it's a short week for the Giants.
That's in San Francisco?
That is in San Francisco.
Okay.
Giants are staying out there. What about Seattle -6 at home against Carolina?
No. Avoid. I mean, I like Seattle in that game, but no.
Miami is -6.5 against Denver. fishy, right? I would think that'd be more. Kansas City minus 12.5 against the Bears. Dallas minus 12 at Arizona. Oh, boy. Where do we go from here? Oh, wait. That's a road game, Mike Danger.
Oh, so we got to cross that off.
Cross off Dallas. I'm sorry.
With discipline.
Listen, nope. We have better choices this week. Let somebody else. Will Dallas get it done? Probably. But I don't want probably. I want certainty. You mentioned it. Seattle. Do they feel like a 6-point favorite you should go with? Not when we have better options. Cross Seattle off.
There's really only one option. You're not going to hurt my feelings.
Cross off the Giants. We're going to kill the suspense this week. Cross off the Giants. With the Niners on a short week. Cross off Miami. With apologies to Fats Domino. And don't say I can't sing, Mike Danger. I'm picking Kansas City. Kansas City, here I come. They got some bad Bears opponent, and I'm going to get me some. I'm picking Kansas City. Kansas City, here I come. Kansas City, your week 3 pick. So comfortable. Thank you, Mike Danger, and every other Bears fan. We're on the week 4. Book it now, and thank me on Monday.
I almost want the Bears to win now just so we can replay rolling the tape on your rendition of Kansas City, Here I Come. And if the Bears shock the world and somehow beat the Kansas City boring Chiefs, that moment that just occurred will live in sports bar infamy forever.
I am fully aware that the Chiefs, in one way or another, twice have played a role in the knockout.
Yes.
Last year, picking Kansas City at Indianapolis, I violated my own rule in week 3. Shame on me, and deserve to go out.
Kansas City's at home. Chicago is putrid. Kansas City's offensive coordinator has an axe to grind against Chicago because when he was in Chicago, they treated him like hot garbage. Not just him, he and his family. His kids were getting picked on at school because Nagy's Bears were so bad.
I saw that video, like
Terrible.
him at a high school game, and they're like
terrible. Yeah. Terrible. So he's gotten an axe to grind with that organization, with Chicago. Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes. Kansas City is going to tear Chicago apart. And would you say it's 12.5?
Yeah. Do they cover? You laying points?
Yeah, I think they cover. Oh,
there's another fact, too. Kansas City lost at home opening night. Like, really, they're going to start the season 0-2 at home.
There's nothing about Chicago that should make... The last time these two teams played, remember Mahomes was like walking into the end zone, counting on his fingers, talking about all the teams that the Bears passed on him.
I forgot about that angle. It's even more ammo.
They all have an axe to grind with Chicago. The Nagy, Mahomes, they're going to embarrass my Bears. This pick is safe. I hate to say it, but it's safe. I as much as I want to see an upset happen, not just because I'm a Bears guy, but because I want to replay you singing Kansas City, Here I Come. If you fail, we all fail. This is the easiest Survivor pick I think we're going to have all season long.
Okay, I'm a little self-aware, I would like to think. I know I can't sing. So, like, it's on display there, Danger.
That was a moment. That was a moment.
So I know I can't sing. So really, your idea of singing Benny Mardones?
Yeah. No, I think we'll kill it. We'll crush.
I'd have to really rehearse. I don't know.
Absolutely crush. We'll crush with the Yacht Club guys behind us as our backing band. We'll crush. We just got to hit our mark here, and you can do your part, by the way, if you want to help us build our community online with YouTube and Twitch. We get to 1,000 subscribers between the two platforms. Gino and I will sing Benny Mardones Into the Night. And you just got a taste of Gene's vocal stylings, his talent right there during Survive in Advance. I'm going to save mine for the stage, but I can bring it. All right, we're going to take a break.
Yeah, by the way, that Fats Domino song, the lyrics don't hold up.
Oh, were you actually looking at the lyrics?
Yeah, well, it's that the line is, they got some pretty little women there, and I'm going to get me one. Oh. I didn't know that's the way it worked.
That could probably still hold up today. I mean, if you're listening to hip hop, that's pretty tame fare. I think we'll be okay with that. Before we take a break, before we get to Tony Cotillo, and talk some fantasy here. Tony from Win Daily Sports joining us in a little bit. Just quickly, some news and notes from around the National Football League here in the last 24 hours. Some noteworthy things happening.
Yeah. So the Steelers, if you stay with that, thanks to their defense, 2 touchdowns last night. Yay, 26-22 ended up being the final. Not scoregami. Steelers sacked Deshaun Watson 6 times. Hit him 11 times.
Yeah.
That's 4 turnovers, the one right on the opening play. Linebacker Alexander Highstiff, that 30-yard pick six on the first play, gave the Steelers a lead for good, 6:58 remaining in the fourth quarter with a strip sack. And T.J. Watt, oh, great. T.J., like, you're celebrating 1 sack while Watson's down on the ground. That wasn't exactly a good look.
I like, for as much as I'm not a J.J. Watt fan, T.J. Watt is different for me.
No, he's going into JJ territory.
Not yet.
Yeah.
Not yet. He's not there yet. Maybe he does, but he's not there yet. He's a different breed. He's a different breed of cat. He doesn't appear to be the me first guy that JJ is. At least that's my impression of TJ Watt. He's a bad man. Oof. Well, the news for the Browns worse when you consider that not only they lose Nick Chubb for the season. He injured his knee, gruesome injury. And Kevin Stefanski today saying that he and GM Andrew Berry and the Browns personnel department are looking at external options. But at least for now, Cleveland will roll with Jerome Ford as their featured running back. We'll get more into that with Tony Cotillo here in just a couple of minutes. We talk some fantasy and Win Daily Sports.
Steve Hausman just texted me. Thanks for listening, Steve. He says Kansas City's not by Fats Domino? It's Harrison Wilbert?
Well, he would know. Back in my day, we listened
to... like, Fats Domino is doing...
We used to play that station back on the radio. Back in Kidding House. Kidding.
Wait a second. No, that's Fats Domino.
I don't know.
Is it not?
I don't know. I don't know who sings the song. What does it say? You use the Googles.
I did.
I can't believe
it is Fats
Steve
Domino.
Hausman absolutely sent you on a tailspin now. Look at that. He's inside.
Fats
he's in your
Domino.
kitchen.
Song by Fats Domino.
Okay. Was there a remix back in the day that Hausman knows about that we didn't know about?
No. Unless somebody did. Yeah, no. We're right. It's Fats Domino.
All right. Gino, ignore the comment section.
Ignore the comment section. Sorry. Love you, House.
Meanwhile, you had the early game, the doubleheader. It was the Saints moving to 2-0.
Yawn.
The Saints are 2-0. They beat Carolina 2017. Bryce Young, the story, he was sacked 4 times. He was pressured a bunch.
Sucks.
He might be an issue here. We'll see. The passing attack was just all short, all underneath. He lost a fumble on one of the sacks. This stat line is mesmerizing. It just boggles the brain. 22 of 33. 22 completions, 153 yards. Yuck. Yuck.
Was that even possible?
22 of 33 for 153 yards.
Oh.
Yuck.
Oh. Yeah. Captain Check down there. Panthers lost linebacker Shaq Thompson, fracturing his fibula, misses the remainder of the season. He's in his 9th season with the Panthers, and he just agreed to a new deal with the team in the offseason. Saquon Barkley, they're playing games here, the Giants are. Brian Daboll says, don't count him out. Okay, Daboll said today it was premature to rule out Barkley for the Thursday night game. Daboll, thanks, Steve, you're in my head. Daboll says the team will make a game-time decision when it comes to Saquon Barkley.
And we're getting news here breaking as well that Kareem Hunt is actually visiting the Browns, just to kind of revisit that Nick Chubb story. Yeah, that would be the easy one if you're the Browns, right? Bring back Kareem Hunt, who's remains a free agent, hasn't signed with the team yet. And we're talking about injured running backs. Brandon Staley, Chargers head coach, said that there isn't a timeline on a return from Austin Eckler, who didn't practice at all last week. He's dealing with his own ankle injury. And while he was gone, the team rushed for just 2.9 yards per carry in their loss on Sunday. Eckler didn't miss any games last season, for what it's worth. He missed only 1 game in 2021. No timetable on a return from Austin Eckler. Again, we'll get into that a little bit more here and the fantasy implications of that injury with Tony Cotillo in just a few. And this felt like it was going to be an inevitability. We have reports now that the XFL and USFL will merge here coming up in
my
2024. Yeah. I mean, you had both leagues happening this spring, competing with each other with just a couple of weeks of overlap. The XFL starting right after the Super Bowl, the USFL starting in April. And the XFL, the history here, I mean, the 2023 season was their third crack at trying to make something work here in the spring. And the USFL came back after being dark for decades in 2022. Obviously, you can't sustain two spring football leagues, so let's merge them into one. And there's a lot of questions that need to be answered as far as like what brand will remain, what brand will hit the bricks, who's running the whole thing, who's financing the whole thing. There's a lot of questions that I'm sure will be released over the course of time, maybe even as soon as later this week.
Yeah, biggest merger since Live Golf and the PGA.
Yeah.
Sure. Who's in hot water this week? Well, go back to that one game. You have the Vikings and you have the Chargers. Like two teams that find different, new, inventive ways to lose. And I don't think Kevin O'Connell would be in the hot seat, but I would think Kirk Cousins might be. And certainly Brandon Staley. Look, if you can't beat the Vikings, you're the Chargers.
Brandon Staley going in to meet with his GM.
What would you say you do here?
This stat is mind-boggling. The Chargers have thrown for over 500 yards first two games. As a team, their offense has not turned the ball over. They're 0-2.
Yeah.
They haven't won. Yeah. That's bad. You're in hot water, Brandon Staley. See how good, though, hot water can be at Ace Swim and Leisure. They've been serving Rochester area families since 1962, and it isn't very often something comes along as cool and different as the all-new Jacuzzi Swim Spa. It's the right size. It's the right price. It's the pool spa combo that gives you the pro-grade water workout and therapeutic water massage. See the all-new Jacuzzi Swim Spa for yourself at Ace Swim and Leisure's Chili Avenue store today or aceswim.com.
Odyssey has sports for every fan. Keep up with your favorite teams from
Buffalo Bills players off today, resuming practice tomorrow on Wednesday. Head coach Sean McDermott knows that Washington's defensive line is going to be a problem.
Yeah, very poised, very focused, business-like approach. This week will be a big test for our offensive line. They've got a very talented, a bunch of high draft picks along their defensive front there.
We'll have the call Sunday at 1 o'clock. Pre-game coverage begins at 9 a.m. here on The Fan Rochester. Free agent running back Kareem Hunt visiting his former team this afternoon, the Cleveland Browns. The Browns likely without Nick Chubb for the rest of the season, getting hurt on Monday Night Football. The Red Wings, they play tonight. It's the final week of the regular season, all the games in Indianapolis. Yankees hosting Toronto, the Jays in the second wildcard spot. Rangers and Mariners one game back. Gene Battaglia in the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan Rochester.
Neat or on the rocks? It's the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia. The sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Yeah, I was very pleased and impressed with the balance there. Really, they're all similar but all different. And I think with Tay, you get a lot of veteran leadership, and you could feel him when he went into the game. I think it was maybe on our first or second touchdown. And all three really pride themselves on the protection, the pass protection piece as well, and catching the ball out of the backfield. So I think they've done a really good job. Coach Skipper's done a good job.
Bills head coach Sean McDermott talking about his backfield. Could you find some value in that Bills backfield if you're starting them in your fantasy lineups this weekend? We bring in Tony Cotillo, Win Daily Sports. Love talking fantasy football here in the Sports Bar. Tony, how's week 2 treating you, and how excited are you for week 3 now, considering we've got a lot of injuries to deal with? We've got a lot of kind of patching up to do with our lineups here. How are you, bud?
I'm doing good, guys. How are you? I'm doing better than Nick Chubb, I'll tell you that, man. That poor guy. Couldn't happen to a nicer guy, man. I'm telling you, it's such a shame. I kind of cringed watching it, and I'll be honest with you, just looking at it this week coming up, it's almost like we talked about in the offseason. It's like zero running back theory. You essentially have to treat the running backs as fantasy like they're honestly doing in the NFL, because they just come and go so easily, and they're left with nothing.
So if we're looking tonight at the waiver wire, and certainly Chubb owners are going to have to do this, Jerome Ford, I mean, is that how? Well, it is a drop-off, but how big would that be if you end up having to plug in Ford? And this idea that Kareem Hunt is visiting, I mean, is Kareem Hunt anything more than a flyer at this point?
And can I add in there too, Tony, if you have a free agent auction budget, how much of your budget would you invest in somebody like Jerome Ford?
Honestly, I think I would invest everything in Jerome Ford. And here's why. And this is to take nothing away from Nick Chubb, but you guys have watched football just as long as I do, probably longer. And if you remember, in the late '90s, early 2000s, Gary Kubiak had one heck of a roster of running backs out there in Denver. Whether it be Mike Anderson, whether it be Alanis Gary, whether it be Clinton Portis, they were built behind the run. That's what this Kevin Stefanski team is built behind. The line is there. The line hasn't changed. And you saw Jerome Ford go off last night. Not to say it's going to happen every week, but he's going to be the one guy right now that I think you can lean on. And looking at all the options out there, I mean, you're not going to go spend a budget on Matt Breida. Nobody wants Matt Breida. Nobody wants Tony Jones, right? You're going to have Kamara back in a week. So, I'm looking at Jerome Ford as obviously the number one option just based on that offensive line alone.
Well, when we're looking at the Steelers, I think most of us would say the eye test, Jaylen Warren seems to be the better running back. And do you think actually the Steelers will kind of go in this direction as the season goes along, more Warren and less Najee Harris?
I really do, guys. You guys remember when I was on here in the preseason, that was my biggest prediction, man, was Warren will be the RB1 by the end of the year. And listen, they've given Najee Harris every opportunity, right? And the eye test, he just doesn't pass for me. He just doesn't do it. Now, his yards per carry is a little embossed because he had a couple big plays. But besides that, I mean, we're talking about a running back that's rushed for 74 yards in 2 games, and he's getting 0 targets. That's the thing you have to look at. From a pass-catching perspective, you already have 9 receptions for Jaylen Warren with 12 targets. He's averaging 6 targets per game, and that's only going to go up and average a 16.5 yards per carry or per catch
from the receiving area. So he's definitely, to me, he's the sneaky handcuff. He's the stash that you should really go out and find and put on your roster.
I'm talking to Tony Cotillo, Win Daily Sports, some fantasy football here in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia. Something smells rotten with the Chargers, Tony, and I don't know how you're feeling. Austin Eckler has usually been reliable in terms of his health. He didn't miss any games last year. He only missed one in 2021. We know that there's an ankle injury that kept him out of week 2, but now we're hearing from Coach Staley that, there's no timetable to his return. What do you do if you had shares in Eckler?
Man, I'll tell you, and that's what's crazy. If you think about it, think about the guys that have gone down, right? Eckler, Saquon Barkley, J.K. Dobbins, Nick Chubb. I mean, and then nobody's even talking about the whole Derrick Henry issue where Tajay Spears is ready to really bite into all his volume. So, this is a major, major problem because a lot of owners took these guys top 5, top 10 in their drafts, and now we're looking at, what do we do? I mean, are we going to rely on Joshua Kelly? I mean, 13 for 39 last week. I know he played a tough Titans middle of the defense, but, I mean, that's nothing to sneeze about, right? And listen, this Chargers team's not as explosive as we thought it was going to be. So it's almost like you have to play this game as a week-to-week kind of matchup, are they? What is that run defense that they're going to face? Is it going to be a little lighter? Do you have a Kyron Williams? Do you have a Kenny Gainwell, a Gus Edwards, a Justice Hill? You're just going to have to play matchups from here on out.
Tony Cotillo, Win Daily Sports, our guest. Tony, if we can kind of bring it a little closer to home, the Buffalo Bills last week, nice rebound game. Now, the disclaimer here, and I didn't get your thoughts on that, it was against the Raiders. I don't think the Raiders' defense, Max Crosby aside, but he was invisible in this game. But what you saw out of the game plan when you have Cook go over 100 yards in this game, when you have running backs contributing, do you see the Buffalo Bills kind of becoming finally a more balanced attack? Do you feel comfortable enough playing James Cook as an RB2?
I really do. I think he's trending up remarkably. I mean, I know he wasn't the guy that everybody thought he was going to be last week. Everybody thought he was going to have this ball-out week, but because he didn't score. But here's what I'm very, very excited about. Again, 10 targets. He's involved in the receiving game, at least 4 catches in each of the first 2 games. And listen, he's getting the volume. He went from 12 attempts the first week, 17 attempts. He's going to be up to 20 to 23 touches a week. So even without a touchdown, he's not touchdown dependent. He's giving you last week, he's giving you 19 points from a running back, and that's without scoring. So, it's still an explosive offense. And listen, Josh Allen was 31 to 37. And a lot of that was because they really defined the game plan a little bit. They brought it in a little more, right? They allowed him to kind of survey the field. Listen, 274 for 3 touchdowns is nothing to sneeze at. More like a Josh Allen game. So I think you should be very, very pleased with James Cook because the only way to go is up.
How much of an advantage do you have if you had the foresight or you had the fortitude to get him on the waiver wire after week 1 to have a guy like Puka Nacua on your lineup, considering that the Rams at 1-1 offensively look pretty good? Matthew Stafford is looking good through 2 weeks.
He really is. I mean, it's like he found a fountain of youth, man. Like, I don't know what happened to Matthew Stafford. And I'll tell you what, here's the thing. This is the crazy thing about this is where we talk about every year when people say, wait on a quarterback in drafts. I'm going to wait on a quarterback, right? Everybody says that. Well, now you're seeing it. Now you're seeing what's happening because everybody that got drafted high, listen, the top 5 quarterbacks right now, Kirk Cousins, number 1. Tua, number 2, Mahomes, number 3, Russell Wilson, number 4, Mac Jones, 5, Jordan Love, 6. So think about that, right? So, and you bring up Puka. Here's the issue with Puka. He has been unbelievable. But the question is, what happens, right? What happens when Cooper Kupp comes back? Is Cooper Kupp going to be healthy enough? Listen, 25 for 266. He's on pace for about 244 catches this year, right? That's not going to happen, right? It's going to slow down. But here's the thing, if I'm a betting man, I would say that Cooper Kupp's not going to be healthy for the entire year. He's going to be in and out of the lineup. So you want as many shares as Puka as you can get.
Tony, get your thoughts as we're trying to make lineup decisions here. And you're based in Philadelphia. And yes, the Eagles are 2-0. But from every Eagle fan that I talk to, it's like, there's things you kind of got to fix. One of them being the pass defense. You allowed 300 yards against Mac Jones. You let Kirk Cousins, primetime Kirk. That's supposed to be bad. I mean, granted, you won the game. So that leads me to this week. And a team that's actually 2-0 coming in, Tampa Bay. Are you thinking maybe Baker Mayfield is a streaming option here? Your thoughts on what you saw out of the Eagles? Are they going to tighten things up here?
Yeah, well, here's the thing. I will say this. The Eagles had two big-time injuries in the secondary last week, and they had another one during the game in Avonte Maddox, who was supposed to step in for Reed Blankenship. So now they were playing three guys, one of them like basically off the practice squad, as one of their corners. So, you had Slay and everybody else. Now, the week before, there's no excuse, right? Because you have Bradbury out there, and you have your starting safeties, and you have Slay. So here's what I will say about this week. The thing I will say to there's two lines of schools of thought here. Number one, the right side of the line for Tampa Bay is completely trash. And the Eagles' defense gets after the quarterback like no other. So look at guys like Hassan Reddick and Jalen Carter to really make some havoc. But here's the thing about Baker. The one thing, knowing to cover this team locally, that the Eagles struggle with is mobile quarterbacks. When players move outside the pocket, they have a very weak linebacking core right now who cannot really hang with anybody. They just brought back Morrow from Chicago, who they cut a week ago, right? So you have Baker, who's really playing hard, who's had some hard runs. So I think he actually could be a decent option this week just based on his running ability alone.
And because you're there in Philadelphia, I want to get a little sense of what they're doing with that backfield, because we saw DeAndre Swift run all over the Vikings. But, man, after week one, it sure felt like Kenneth Gainwell was the guy that they were favoring. If Gainwell gets right and comes back from that rib injury, do we expect to see more of a 50-50 on that one, or do you think Swift did enough to command a lion's share of that workload in the backfield?
Oh, he definitely did enough, 100%. Now, one thing, being local in Philadelphia, everybody that covered the team, we all knew that Kenneth Gainwell was the guy. He was 100% the guy. We knew Rashad Penny was not good. We knew that DeAndre Swift wasn't getting the looks in camp. But I think a lot of that was just learning the play system, learning how to play with Jalen Hurts, learning the offensive play call. It's a pretty extensive playbook that they have in Philadelphia because all of the RPOs. So that's something that I think they just didn't trust DeAndre Swift with at first, but he got pressed into action. I think he opened his eyes up. And now, listen, when you have a beast like that running the way he did, you cannot keep him off the field. So a 50-50 split at least is what you're going to get with DeAndre Swift, if not switching to about 60-40 in favor of D. Swift.
Tony, last one for me, and it's kind of looking at matchups, trying to figure out who to play, who not to. I think you're feeling comfortable with the Miami Dolphins, are you not? Like, okay, it's go time. But what about the opponent this week, Denver? And I look at the line there, 6.5. I'm thinking, oh, that should be more. And I'm thinking, what is Vegas saying? I think there might be some points, I'm assuming, here from the Broncos. So how comfortable are you with an 0-2 Denver offense in terms of playing them fantasy-wise going down to Miami?
Yeah, listen, this is an interesting one because I'm a big Sean Payton guy. And from my recollection, there's no way that Sean Payton's going to go 0-3, in my opinion. Like, I just see it in my mind and say there's no way. And the one thing I will say is Russell Wilson's already exceeded, expectations from a fantasy quarterback in 2 games based on what he's done this year as opposed to last year, right? So, I mean, you're looking at him as almost 500 yards, 5 touchdowns, and 1 pick. Percentage is down a little bit, but he's the 5th-ranked quarterback in fantasy right now. He just got Jerry Jeudy back last week, and what you're seeing is Jeudy just not right yet, right? So this is another week. He's got a pretty explosive offense out there with Courtland Sutton, who has size and speed, where Jeudy can go all over. And then you have Marvin Mims, who comes out and just shows he could be the long guy. So he's kind of building what he had in Seattle. And with the play calling of Sean Payton, I think sky's the limit. Right now, they haven't won any games, but at least they've been in them, and they've shown they've been able to score points. So I actually like them this week. I know it's Miami, but I'm telling you right now, there's no way that team goes 0-3.
Tony, you're our fantasy Goomba. Let our audience know a little bit more where they can get your work.
Yeah, man. Listen, you can catch me every single day over at WinDailySports.com. Obviously, you can catch me here every other Tuesday. And you catch me on the weekends at Sirius XM Fantasy Channel 87, talking all things fantasy sports and sports betting.
Yeah, if you ever need a guest, Tony, on the Sirius show to talk Buffalo Bills, this is my bit there. I always invite myself.
Gene likes to wedge his foot into any door that he sees. Yeah.
I like. Well, we do need like a Buffalo insider. So maybe because my Buffalo insider went to Indianapolis, so I may need one really soon. So I might have to look you up.
All right, you know my number, Tony. Anytime, buddy.
I got you, man. I got you.
Appreciate you, Tony. Have a great week and enjoy your weekend.
Thanks, guys. You too. Good luck.
Tony Cotillo, Win Daily Sports, talking some fantasy football here in the Sports Bar. We got happy hour right around the corner next, Gino. Before we get to that, who's hot and who's cold in fantasy football?
Yeah, who is cold right now? You have to say the Cleveland Browns, right? And I hate kind of saying that, but moving forward, were you encouraged by Deshaun Watson last night? Were you encouraged by what you saw? You allowed 2 defensive touchdowns and losing to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Certainly not good. And who's hot right now? I don't see anything slowing down for the Miami Dolphins. Finally, they get back home. I mean, you forget that they put up these numbers, both of those games on the road, Tagovailoa to Tyreek Hill to Jalen Waddle. I think they're going to be just fine going against Denver. I would say that is the team that's hot right now.
Who's hot and who's cold in fantasy football, brought to you by Air Quip Heating and Air Conditioning. It's fun and challenging to know when to start a player that's heating up or bench one that's cooling off. It is not fun to be too hot or too cold in your home or business. Make the best lineup call you can and call Air Quip today. Happy hour next in the Sports Bar. Lots to unpack from our conversation with Matt Perino of the Syracuse Post-Standard. We talked some Bills and Commanders. We'll look ahead to Sunday's matchup in Washington. We have time for your calls as well. You can join us on the Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub Wingman line. That's 866-4FAN, 866-4326. Award-winning barbecue from Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub, and the new location at 135 West Commercial Street in East Rochester. GoodSmokeBBQ.com.
USF.
Rochester.
Always live on the free Odyssey app.
The Fan Rochester Sports Update.
Bills getting ready for the Commanders. The coaches, that is. Players are off today. Practice resuming tomorrow. Head coach and defensive coordinator Sean McDermott pleased with his run defense.
You take pride in things, and certainly there's good players on the other side of the ball every week. And this week there's another good back or two that Washington has. So it'll be another challenge for us this week. And stopping the run is huge to control the line of scrimmage.
Bills Commanders will have the call Sunday at 1 o'clock. Pre-game coverage here on The Fan will begin at 9 a.m. Free agent running back Kareem Hunt visiting his former team today, the Cleveland Browns. The Browns will likely be without Nick Chubb for the rest of the season. They have a stadium deal in place in St. Petersburg, Florida. For real, $1.2 billion to keep the Rays in the region. Wings tonight playing in Indianapolis. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
A pick six for the Steelers on the first play of the game.
And the ball is out, and it's going to pick it up. And that's TJ Watt running for the end zone. Steelers with the touchdown.
Fire Canada. Black and yellow.
Combine that with the injury to Nick Chubb, and that was a night the Browns would soon forget.
The Saints are 2-0 after a 2017 win in Carolina.
I want to move on to the Bills. The Washington Commanders.
You are now going to face a defensive line that is really, really scary. And that's something that you're going to have to worry about.
The Bills' offensive line is going to have to come to play again, much like they did this past week.
Mike Danger.
Bills fans climbing the fence to be able to be in the construction site.
Gene Battaglia.
The legend of the game. Can somebody get him a nice seat in a suite?
The unfortunate injury sustained by Matt Savoy.
Mel Tucker has responded to Michigan State informing him he'll be fired.
I guess if you're watching right now or you just want to see, I look like a lobster right now.
You survived? You got the savage tan?
No, I'm burned.
95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Welcome to Happy Hour. Many of us still dealing with the trauma that we faced in the last 24 hours. I'm not talking about the Nick Chubb injury. I'm talking about Gene singing Kansas City, Here I Come just moments ago in the sports bar.
I'm that confident I can sing. I can have a big smile on my face. My job, Danger, this is the loser mentality. When you know the Chiefs are going to roll the Bears, well, it might be my only chance to pick Seattle. No, the pick is Kansas City. So let somebody else make a mistake this week. We're not going to win the pool here in week 3. And yes, I'm so excited. I was singing Little Fats Domino. And I was just
belting it out.
I was just presenting to you here on the air, okay, that I am self-aware and I cannot sing. I cannot sing, Danger. So why are you putting us through these steps here to get up on stage and sing Benny Mardones?
Well, this is just a reward for everybody who helps us build our community on YouTube and Twitch. We've been talking about it for a minute here. If you help us build our community on YouTube and Twitch at The Fan Rochester, we get to 1,000 subscribers. At some point, Gino and I will get on stage together and we will do a duet. We will sing Benny Mardones into the night.
Can we pick another song though? That is so tough. Creepy first lyric aside.
I'll do the first line if it makes you uncomfortable.
No, you are going to do the first one.
I know.
Have you practiced like singing the rest of it?
I mean, I sing that song all the time.
You can't do it.
I'll hit those notes, man.
No.
I will hit those notes. It will be a sight. It will be memorable.
Show you. I would drop it an octave, bud. Are we allowed to do that?
I think all rules go out the window. I'm not trying to make it to Hollywood. I'm just trying to sing a yacht rock staple on stage for the people who help us build our community on YouTube and Twitch at The Fan Rochester. The video stream is up for you. We appreciate you checking that out. You know you can hear us in the free-to-download Odyssey app where we sound our best. Wherever you get your podcasts, just search out The Sports Bar. You'll find all of our shows there, all of our guest appearances as well. And you can always pull up a stool and join us here in the Sports Bar at 866-4326-585, 866-4FAN. It was a gruesome injury last night. For the Browns, if you're a Browns fan, you know, that game was ugly on both sides of the ball. Both teams didn't really play well. It was ugly football all around last night, both games.
Was that a first last night, what they did on ESPN? Or was it ABC? The Buck and Aikman call. Was that a first where like, hey, here's an injury that we're not going to show to you? Usually they would give you the warning like, hey, you might want to look away from this, and then they show it. Like, my gosh, the Theismann thing, if you were around back then, they showed it over and over, and here's the reverse angle. And it last night, but while they're saying this last night, we're not going to show this for you, you hear the crowd groan. They put it up on the scoreboard in Pittsburgh. Maybe not kind of thinking, or what are we doing here? And good on the Steeler fans for applauding and cheering for Nick Chubb as he's coming off. And it's just a reminder here that anybody that says, the running back isn't worth it, I understand why running backs want to get paid, because that can happen. And for Nick Chubb, I don't know if he's ever going to play again. And if he does, he's not going to certainly be cashing in on another contract. And if you're an owner, I can understand the other side of the argument. You know what? That can happen. As good as you are, Mr. Running Back, there's this giant risk out there that we can't get insured from on the salary cap. So it's just unfortunate what happened last night there, Fitzpatrick rolling into Chubb.
And I saw something cross my feed. Did I imagine this, or did the NFL claim that the players' union now is telling running backs to exaggerate their injuries? I feel like I saw that somewhere, something along those lines.
They did. That wasn't running backs. That was something back from a few. But they're
basically saying, to get yours, maybe exaggerate a little bit more than what you're used to. We've got a couple of instances around the NFL with players who are out, or maybe they're out and we don't know if they're out. We're getting signals from Brian Daboll, which may be nothing more than gamesmanship heading into Thursday night's game against the Niners, that don't rule out Saquon Barkley just yet. We don't have a timetable on the return for Austin Eckler in Los Angeles with the Chargers. If you missed Tony Cotillo talking some fantasy Win Daily Sports, some good options from Tony, who joined us just a few minutes ago. We got that up and on demand for you wherever you get your shows.
Not amongst them. I was thinking, Tony Jones. You're like, no Tony Jones.
Nobody
Jr.
wants Tony Jones.
No.
Alvin Kamara's coming back. No, I mean, Tony's saying empty your wallet for Jerome Ford. Jerome Ford's a name that we were talking about in the summer. Like that's a backup that nobody was really talking about. Nobody was talking about the handcuff to Nick Chubb with no Kareem Hunt. And the irony of all this is now that Kareem Hunt may actually end up re-signing with the Browns and getting a little bit more from the Browns than the Browns probably want to give him, just out of necessity.
Well, as unfortunate as that injury was, if you're Cleveland and if you're just judging on dollars, the best quarterback in the game, he's getting the most guaranteed dollars in the game. Why are my eyes saying that's not it? That's not the quarterback that we saw in Houston a few years ago. Was it the layoff? Was he not that good to begin with? Is it the coaching? They got to figure that out pretty quick. Because entering last night, look, maybe I was pumping up the tires of Browns fans. I know we have listeners that are Browns fans saying, hey, you win in Pittsburgh and you get wins against the Bengals and the Steelers and you're 2-0. This is your opportunity. And then what happens?
Wow.
In the only bad things happen to the Browns.
Steelers don't lose at home on Monday night. That's another element of this as well. I don't know what the streak is now. It's something ridiculous. They just don't lose at home on Monday night.
But here is a stat that did end last night. Like teams that play the 49ers the week before, you know what the record was before last night? The following week, 0-15. Like the Niners take such a toll on teams.
They suck out your soul.
Yeah, and they just beat you down. So good on the Steelers, good on their defense. And when you set the tone, yes, it went off the receiver's hands, but look, if you're Watson, you got to put that ball in a better spot. Honestly. What are you doing calling that call, first down there, to open the game like that?
The flip side of that coin, the Steelers weren't impressive in their victory. I mean, you had the defense bailing you out with a couple of scores, but Kenny Pickett struggles. That offense looks bad. Everybody wants to fire Matt Canada, the offensive coordinator, which would be a very un-Steelers thing to do. Fire a coordinator in the middle of the season.
Usually we get somebody that's going to be, I don't know if it's going to be your guy in Chicago or whoever it might be, who is the sacrificial coordinator, because that's the only move you can make here right now. And for the Steelers, it didn't look right last night, and you just got to keep telling yourself, all right, maybe Pickett figures this out at some point, or maybe it was just a mid-round pick that, hey, let's pick the hometown guy and try to make this work.
You fell in love with the idea of having your hometown guy as the franchise quarterback, and the reality is he may be nothing more than a mid-round caliber talent who never gets it figured out. We'll see. I think there are some interesting pieces, and it's a well-coached team, man. Mike Tomlin, I don't know if
Wait, time out. Hold on. Well-coached?
Mike Tomlin's a very good coach.
Okay,
yes.
Last night, cut Gunnar Olszewski. Cut him right now. If they're a well-coached team, what are you doing? Like he lost his mind last night.
I don't know if you know this about Mike Tomlin, but he's never had a losing season. Has anybody brought that up? Has anybody mentioned that recently? Mike Tomlin's a good coach, and they'll sort it out. They'll work it through, to the frustration of Steelers fans. But there will be ups, there will be downs.
Mike Tomlin is the Aaron Boone of the NFL. 2010 was the last time you got to the Super Bowl. 13 years. Like, this is the Steeler way, and they'll win 10 games, and they'll lose early in the playoffs, and this is what the Steelers do.
Well, you can't do it without talented players. You've got at least one that we know of on either side of the ball.
They have, they have a solid front office. I'm saying Mike Tomlin, he's the Aaron Boone. Aaron Boone's a good manager that, hey, it's been a long time. I guess
it's a good take because it kind of pisses me off that you just said that. So that must make it a good take.
Did you even know me in the year 2010?
Mike Tomlin is nothing more than the Aaron Boone of NFL head coaches is a pretty strong take, Gino.
Aaron Boone is an okay manager who will keep his job in New York and knows how to manage his personalities and everything else. And how long has it been since 2009. But because they're always there, we same thing with the Steelers.
It's a model of consistency. It's a franchise every organization models himself after. Every organization would want what the Steelers have.
And everybody loves the Yankees, and their Yankees are always there. And this is the year
the Yankees are the model franchise. The Yankees, I think, are viewed differently because they just go out and spend for what they need. The Steelers do it in a different way.
Why would the Steelers be considered the model franchise again if they haven't won? You got to go back further.
How many Super Bowls have they won?
I'm talking
6, 7.
How many World Series have the Yankees won?
Yeah, I know.
26.
All right.
Ooh, I got danger angry.
Well, I just think it's a good take because it's pissing me off. It's a good take.
It shouldn't be the barometer of a good take.
It is
just
get
you thinking.
Split an audience. That's the barometer. If it splits, right now there are people screaming at you.
I'm not trying to piss you off.
No. Not pissing me off like I'm really angry at you. That's why I'm jealous. It's a good take. It's a good like if you're a Steeler fan right now and you just heard Gene compare your head coach, Mike Tomlin, to that failure in the Yankee dugout. It's a pretty good take. Split an audience.
Our number 866-4FAN 866-4326. Always have time for you, including Luke. Hey Luke, what's going on, buddy?
Hey guys, couple things. My main point is about Allen, but you guys are talking about Pittsburgh 10-win team. The way Pickett has been playing these last two games, it's questionable that they're going to get to 10 wins, and especially with the relic that is their offensive coordinator, Matt Canada, and you guys played the song earlier. At any rate, my real point is nobody seems to be talking about Josh Allen taking a pretty vicious hit to the head being impaled into the ground late first quarter, early second quarter. Can't remember exactly the time frame in that Jets game, and I think that could be a contributing factor to his play later in the game. And if you guys were paying attention this past weekend, it was interesting how the NFL stepped up their concussion protocol and the numerous players that went into the tent, and including what seemed like just a regular play with Devontae Adams, and now he's in concussion protocol, and Anthony Richardson sustained the concussion. He's out. I think another receiver in the Giants game also went into the tent. And there was another receiver in the late game. So anyway, just wondering what your thoughts are.
You know, look, I appreciate the call, and thank you, 866-4326. We did mention that, and I recall the hit, and it was before the third interception, and we did talk about I thought in week one, Josh kind of looked glazed on the sideline at the end there. And I don't know, was the, oh my gosh, I lost the game. Hey, you're in overtime. You have a chance to win this. And you could see Diggs kind of riling him up, but he never went through the protocol. And whatever it was, if anything at all, well, he was just fine yesterday. So,
and it's not the NFL is paying more attention. Like, this is the new normal now in the NFL. If you take a hit to the head, they're going to test you. If you don't want to be tested, they're going to test you. I don't think Devontae Adams wanted to be tested. He wanted to be in the game. You saw his reaction. He was pissed. He was mad. And he had symptoms, so he's out, and he's in the protocol.
He had symptoms, and then he jogged back to the locker room ahead of everybody else.
That's right. The Anthony Richardson case is a unique one in that he took the hit and then played a couple of series and then self-reported symptoms, which now has him in concussion protocol, which is kind of a weird, mature way of dealing with it, something we haven't seen a player do up to this point. And it has to delight the NFL to know that now players themselves are self-policing for concussion symptoms and pulling themselves out of the game if they're feeling them. I don't think Josh Allen is there. I don't think Josh Allen is the guy that's going to be like, yeah, I'm a little queasy, or yeah, my vision is blurry. I can't see straight, or I'm glazed over. I took a hit to that. I don't think that he's going to be one of those guys that pulls himself from the game.
I would think the majority of players would also fall into that category,
That's correct.
Whether it's a concussion or whether it's Mahomes in the playoff game against the Jags and the quarterback show. You see him, demanding to go back into the game when Reed's saying you're done. No, I'm going back in, and the quarterback wins out. So it's something that's getting better. I'll say that. I think the low point, the point was like, what are we doing here? Was actually week 3 last year.
Tua.
Yeah, that was week 3 last year.
Yeah, the NFL isn't going to mess around with it. That is a big, big check that they had to scratch out in a settlement years ago, and because of that, now they're going to make they're going to take every opportunity they can to highlight how much they care about protecting players from these head injuries and from CTE. So the new normal is, Luke, that there is no more or less. They're not paying more or less attention to it. No, they have officials that when they see a player take a hit to the head, they will dial down to the officiating crew on the field and say, get him off the field, get him evaluated.
And the cynic in me, is this me being cynical or just me being correct, Andrew? You tell me. It's done secondarily for health reasons. It's done primarily to avoid future lawsuits.
Of course. Follow the dollars. Absolutely. The NFL doesn't want to be painted in a negative light, and they certainly don't want to have to deal with a settlement because somebody died due to CTE after they were done playing.
We took all these preventative measures. Look at this.
That's right. We have checks and balances. We have an official in the booth who is monitoring the game just for head-on-head, helmet-on-helmet injuries. And those players are getting evaluated. And this is happening in every game, in every stadium, every Sunday.
Did anybody think last night, like if the Bills were playing, if they did the 2 games last week as opposed to last night, and they're going to do it again next week, we would have been losing our minds like, hey, let's go to an update of the dual box here of the Saints and the Panthers and show you 2 things at a time.
Yeah, that was funny to me, the reaction from Steelers or Browns fans. Hey, not for nothing, but if I wanted to see that crap game on ESPN, I would go to that game on lose the split screen, ABC. I'll hang up and listen. Yeah, that had some people riled up. And the thing is, like, most of our TVs or providers can give you now picture in picture. You can watch 2 things at once if you so choose. We're so used to having that much control now that seeing a network take that control away from us pisses us off. We've run out of problems, man.
Look, most of us, can you watch a football game without phone?
I can. But it's nice during commercial breaks.
I'm constantly watching and like you're looking for takes, looking for this. And when you see another game going on, you're monitoring the game. For fantasy purposes, for other purposes. Like, you don't need to do the dual screen. Just not necessary.
Yeah, I was flipping back and forth between the two. That early game wasn't much to write home about. Some bad football last night, both games. Maybe next week provides a little bit more. And week 3 gets underway Thursday. Is Brian Daboll trolling Kyle Shanahan? Saquon Barkley's not playing on Thursday night. Come on.
He was, the initial report was 2 to 3 weeks, and now all of a sudden, well, it could be a quick healer. It'll be a game time decision. Barkley or no Barkley, we feel pretty comfortable about the Niners winning that game, right?
You look at the Giants' schedule. It's a good thing they got that win against the Cardinals, because they would have started 0 for 5, possibly, when you look at how tough their upcoming schedule is. It ain't going to be easy for them this season. And the playoffs feel like they might be a pipe dream for the Giants.
Although I am scared, not the right word, but would it surprise you if Daboll came in and won in October in Buffalo?
Yes, it would surprise me.
Really?
Yes, it would.
Really?
Absolutely. Yes.
The world would end.
Just based on talent alone. The Giants have some talent. They don't have the talent that the Bills have. That would surprise me.
Okay, I would think Daboll, of all people, would know, hey, this is how you defend Josh Allen. This is where I'm going to roll up my sleeves.
Yeah.
Who's the better coach?
You may know how to, but can you? Do you have the talent that actually can defend him the way you know how to defend him, but can you? And I don't know if they can. I just don't know that they have that much talent. And that was on display in both. I mean, the way they started that game against Arizona is putrid. Just a terrible start to the season. Maybe they turn it around. Maybe it starts as soon as Thursday. Maybe San Francisco overlooks an opponent like the Giants. We'll see. San Francisco looks pretty good.
If you missed our Survivor pick, again, there's no reason to get cute here. The pick is Kansas City this week. Your Bears are a laughingstock, Danger. You wear those clown outfits on Sunday. First of all, how do people in Chicago even allow their team to wear?
We're not happy about it, Gene. Yeah. We're just not happy about it. We're not making excuses. We're just not happy about it. I'm not happy about it. I don't like the orange on orange. 0-3 now in those horrible get-ups, by the way. Lose them, burn them, fire them into the sun. We don't need them anymore. And I'm out on Fields. I'm out. Did I say that?
Wow.
Did I say it yesterday? Yeah, I'm out. I'm out on Fields. He just may not be a good football player. Great athlete. But I think this is, you saw it with Pickett last night. We certainly saw it with Josh Allen week 1. I think there's too many voices in his head. And you've got so many people telling you, do it this way, do it that way, do this, not this, this, but not this. Smart, not conservative. Huh? Whatever the message is, in the moment, you're not able to make the right decision. And you see it time and time again with Pickett. You see it time and time again with Fields. You saw it week 1 with Allen, where there was opportunity that you just couldn't pull the trigger on because your mind is scrambled. You're completely lost. Fields is there. And for a guy that ended the season the way he did last year, for him to start the season the way he has this year, I'm out. I'm out on Fields. He could have an electric string of games here down the stretch and do things with his legs that we haven't seen since Mike Vick, and all of that is fine and all of that is good. Right now, they look like the worst team in the league.
Well, what you need to do is, who's your favorite team? The correct answer is whoever's playing Carolina.
Oh, right. I hate watching the Panthers.
You have their pick.
Yeah.
Aren't you relaxed knowing, okay, this isn't good, but...
No, because you know why?
Caleb Williams won't want to go to Chicago.
No, they'll screw it up.
Yeah.
They do. This is what they do. They'll screw it up. They'll completely screw it up. They'll have 2 picks in the top 5. They'll probably get like a couple of linemen, and they still won't know who their quarterback is. They'll screw it up. I've lived with this my whole life.
It's okay.
Hate my dad for introducing me to this stupid team.
You can walk away, dude.
No, I can't. No, I can't. What kind of a fan would I be if I walked away? Am I a true fan if I walk away? No, I'm a coward. I'm not walking away. How dare you? Gene, you could just hang it up, just stop being a Mets fan, start rooting for the Yankees.
Look, we're talking Mets baseball on the show, not because I'm less of a fan, because they're not relevant. We talk about relevant things.
That's right. Well, then we should stop talking about the Bears,
Chicago Bears.
Except you had to pick against them, and that's the right pick. I'm with you on that one. There might be a week where our paths diverge, but this week is not that week. I'm with you on Kansas City as your Survive in Advance Week 3 pick. We have a round of shots next in the sports bar.
Can you believe they got a stadium deal done in Tampa? It seems
And by the way, what was the price on that? Did you say 1.2? By the time it's done, 2.2? 2.4? What do we say?
Yeah, so we'll give you some details on the stadium that's going to be going up in, well, we'll tell you where. But the Rays aren't going to go anywhere. We'll tell you that. Other stories we're chasing for you here in shots coming up. The Chandler Jones story, we didn't get to this. Kind of weird, right? They have to decide something. Series many sports fans like getting canceled. Also, Sabres update. What's going on with Matthew Savoy? Oh, and a disclosure here from Patrick Mahomes that has me kind of a little concerned.
Okay, we'll get to that and more next. A round of shots on the way here in the Sports Bar. Thanks for joining us on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
Odyssey has sports for every fan. Keep up with
Buffalo Bills off today. Practice coming up tomorrow. Sean McDermott knows that Washington's defensive line is a problem.
Yeah, very poised, very focused, business-like approach. This week will be a big test for our offensive line. They've got a very talented, a bunch of high draft picks along their defensive front there.
We'll have the call Sunday at 1 o'clock. Pre-game coverage here on the Fan Rochester will begin at 9 a.m. Free agent running back Kareem Hunt visiting his former team today, the Cleveland Browns. The Browns likely will be without Nick Chubb for the remainder of the season. Cleveland losing on Monday Night Football to the Steelers. Rochester Red Wings have 1 week left in their season. Begins tonight in Indianapolis. Yankees hosting Toronto. The Jays in the second wildcard position. The Rangers and Mariners 1 game back. Gene Battaglin, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan Rochester.
Pull up a stool and join us. 585-866-4FAN. 866-432-6. The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
Well, I think it takes shape over a handful of weeks, really. Maybe it's, 3, 4, 5, maybe sometimes even 6 weeks, just to get a feel for who you are, this team, this year, with the personnel we have this year. And yesterday, I think, was a step in the right direction. Physical at the line of scrimmage, complementing both run and the pass game, and taking the ball away on defense. So it's some of what we want to become. We're not there yet. It is week 2, as you mentioned, Adam, and I think you're spot on with that.
Bills head coach Sean McDermott, as the team looks to establish their identity. That was from yesterday's Zoom call, and Sean McDermott speak to the media tomorrow when the team gets back to practice in advance of Week 3 against the Washington Commanders. Let's get to a round of shots in the sports bar.
Yeah, a headline I never thought I would read here. They have a stadium deal in place for the Tampa Bay Rays. $1.2 billion, at least that's what they're saying here, as it will be ready in 2028.
Double that number, please. $2.4 billion for the new stadium in Tampa.
Well, it would who's paying for what? Stu Sternberg is the managing partner, meaning, well, he owns the team, but a lot of minority partners here. Says the team's willing to pay for half of it. We shall see. This will have a fixed roof. Okay, so that's a little different, but it's going to have open windows. So I guess kind of letting in whatever Florida brings you that time of year. Capacity is expected to be around 30,000. This is kind of the new norm here. What they're
Do
saying.
we have artist renderings?
We do not. So I guess, is it for real until we have the renderings?
Nope. It's a great story, Gene. Appreciate you sharing it.
Well, hold on. Usually the renderings are like, hey, can you approve this? Let's look at this. The story in Jacksonville today, I don't know if you saw this. They have okay, so this is courtesy Pro Football Talk. A new poll is out. Only 7% of Jacksonville residents are in favor of the $1 billion worth of public money that the Jaguars are asking for the renovations. 47% are saying, we're fine if the team moves.
Wow. Almost half of them say it's okay if Jacksonville leaves, if the Jags leave Jacksonville. I mean, the other part of me is thinking to myself, there's such a low standard for happiness. It's like, hey, what do we want, man? We got a pool in our stadium. I mean, we got a pool. We've made it. We're good. We don't need anything new to our stadium.
It's like, okay, we don't have a team. Oh, well. I'm going to go to the beach today.
Right.
So, different lifestyle.
We'll be okay.
19-year-old winger Matthew Savoy expected to miss the start of training camp for the Sabres, which is beginning here now. He was slammed in the boards yesterday afternoon in that prospects game against Pittsburgh. It's a shoulder injury. And this is the mind-blowing thing. While the Bills are playing the Commanders in Washington, same time the Sabres are going to open up the preseason down there against the Capitals.
Where do you think Terry Pegula is Sunday afternoon?
He better be at the football game, right?
I don't know. What's he taking in? Preseason hockey or Week 3 against the Commanders?
Raiders defensive end Chandler Jones. Now, we were talking to Andre Fontenot. I was like, hey, the idea of you're having Max Crosby over to Chandler. Well, he was a healthy scratch Week 1, and we know there was some beef, but again, this is a weird story, and I don't know what to make of it. And people want to know what's going on here. Jones, I'll just tell you the timeline here. His social media feed hurling a huge allegation saying that MD had molested his goddaughter. MD, we all assume, was Mark Davis. What is this all about? Nothing, apparently. Jones then went to the I was hacked card, saying the posts weren't from him. Well, okay, but it still doesn't explain why Jones was a healthy scratch for these last 2 games.
There's something there. He's upset at the organization, probably said something to somebody he shouldn't have, or word got out that he was unhappy with. Like, don't you get the sense, Mark Davis, you if you're not on board, you're gonna sit. If you're not happy, you're gonna sit. We're gonna punish you. There's only one way to do it. It's the Raider way. We're gonna do it my way. It's another one of those. It's like Arizona. It's just another one of those organizations that's so dysfunctional and has such a bad rap. And he's a part of it. He's been a part of both of those organizations, so he knows what bad looks like now.
Yeah. Fans of the HBO series Winning Time are going to be disappointed with this news. It's canceled. Series about the 1980s Lakers canceled after 2 seasons. Season 2 only lasted 7 episodes. HBO pointing to lower numbers on average. Ratings were down 50%. The show's creators points to the writer's strike, which meant that the cast could not go out and promote this at all. Meanwhile, here's a fun fact. The NBA training camps, some of them will open from 1 week from today.
So I didn't watch this show. You did. You said it was the first season was fantastic.
So if you grew up in that era of the NBA, and I thought the acting, Adrian Brody was great as Riley, Magic, Kareem, I thought they nailed it. But the fun part of this was the executive producer, she got into this because when you can kind of nail an era between music and fashion and everything, early 80s coming out of the 70s, it's kind of tough to put your finger on. I thought they did it here in this. So
the thing that I look at this and why would they get these streamers are getting clobbered. HBO Max, Disney Plus, Hulu, Netflix, all of them. They're all getting clobbered. And it's starting to come around now to the point where the shows that they would invest in heavily, that they would spend a lot of money in production and cast, they just can't afford it anymore. They just can't do it the way they did it a few years ago. So the boom that we've seen here where guys like me are complaining like there's too much. There's just too much content. With the writer's strike and everything kind of slowing down, I kind of like that everything is slowing down. And now maybe when things do pick back up again, and they will, it won't be the us drinking water from a fire hose.
But what made this, though, if you were a fan of the show, first episode they show in a fast forward Magic getting the news that he's been diagnosed with HIV positive. So you would assume, okay, this is going to take you through this whole story arc of Magic Johnson, and then season 2 ends with the Celtics winning. If you're a Celtic fan, you got to be laughing at that, right? Because they had planned for season 3, they didn't get to it. Finally, sticking with, I guess, if the Netflix show Quarterback didn't already reveal enough. Patrick Mahomes' wife, Brittany Mahomes, did a Q&A on Instagram revealing a strange bedtime habit of Patrick Mahomes. He eats Doritos in bed.
Good for him.
Look, who amongst us, Danger, doesn't like Doritos? But I've got some questions here. I would assume he would get up and wash his hands here, right? Because Dorito residue, that's not good on pillows. And you're an NFL quarterback still eating Doritos?
This is the same guy that puts ketchup on his steak. Let's not forget that. He's probably going to always be in his yummy phase. Wash it down with a grape soda. Right, that's Patrick Mahomes.
Okay, well, how's that going to play when you're like 34?
I don't know.
You're going to have to get out of this,
You're talking to a kid, me, when I was a kid, a steady diet of Cool Ranch Doritos and Mountain Dew for lunch for a good 3-4 years every day. Vending machine lunch. Could have packed a lunch, didn't pack a lunch. Doritos and Mountain Dew. That's all I had middle school into high school. So, if he's going to get down with some Doritos while he's chilling out, laying in bed, God bless you. I'm with him.
If you went to Aquinas when I did, for me, it was the fries and Coke. I had every lunch.
Just fries and Coca-Cola?
Fries and Coca-Cola, yeah.
How are we alive? It's amazing. And then when I had the chance, when I switched schools, when I transferred from private school to public school. In public school, they let you leave campus. You go out for lunch if you wanted. There was a lot of options that were a short drive or a short walk from where I went to high school. And it was Pizza Hut. It was the Hut every day for lunch. Personal pan pizza, breadsticks, that lunch combo that they used to have, or the buffet, the pizza buffet at Pizza Hut. Gino, every day once I started making money, I was just spending my money on lunch at Pizza Hut.
First date for the executive producer and I. Let's grab lunch.
Pizza Hut.
Pizza Hut.
I know where you were. Winton Road.
That's it.
The Winton Road Pizza Hut right there
gross.
by the old Rochester Athletic Club.
Yeah.
Man, when you walk into a Pizza Hut now, you're like, how? What really? But like if if you look at pictures from the Pizza Huts back in the day, like that was what that was the peak of America's culture. That was as good as it got, man. Pizza Hut was the best.
Oh, dark, and then you would have Pac-Man or Galaga while you're waiting. Those red plastic cups.
Yes,
the Tiffany lamps.
Yes, dude.
Yes,
yeah,
it was
all
a
of
whole.
it.
Yeah.
It was the best, absolute best. I don't know how we're alive, but it was the best. All right, we're going to get the last call next in the sports bar. We have time for your calls at 866-4326, 585-866-4FAN. If you want to pull up a stool before we close up shop, we'll let you know who's joining us in the sports bar tomorrow afternoon next here on The Fan. Snap into action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Mike Danger for FanDuel Sportsbook, the official partner of 95.7 The Fan. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. Now, if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is easy to use, and there's a wide range of betting options that include spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit my site here, FanDuel.com/Mike. Appreciate that. And then you can help kick off the NFL season. Again, FanDuel.com/Mike, M-I-K-E, FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. 21 plus and physically present in New York. First online real money wager only. $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369.
Odyssey has sports for every fan. Keep up with your favorite teams from across the country.
All right, so if you're coming in later, if you missed any of this afternoon's show, you can get it on demand wherever you get your shows. Just search out the Sports Bar. All of our guest appearances, all of our content, our entire show, we'll post it for you hour by hour. You can check it out at your leisure. Just search out the Sports Bar, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and, of course, the free-to-download Odyssey app. Enjoyed our conversation with Tony Cotillo. We've dubbed him our fantasy Goomba. Hey, Tony, sit, start. What do you think? Win Daily Sports. Tony Cotillo was great in the 4 o'clock hour. And as he does every Tuesday, Matt Perino joined us to talk some Bills football from the Syracuse Post-Standard. Matt joined us in the 3 o'clock hour. Little preview of what we can expect this week as the Bills prepare for their trip to Washington to take on the Commanders on Sunday.
I cannot wait for this week's college football. I know college football fans have been circling this. In fact, you get games you didn't expect to be into, like Colorado at Oregon. All right.
The Colorado State game broke some sort of TV ratings record, right? Weren't they like the 5th rated? I think they were like the 5th highest rated college football game ever watched or something like that for a late game.
Well, the story out of Colorado today is, for the first times in the program's 100-year history, they've sold out every game now in Boulder.
That's great. And Coach Prime today, he's saying what you need to say for the fans that are throwing death threats in the way of the Colorado State player. Yeah, guys, come on. Let's grow up. We're moving on. I think Oregon hands the Buffaloes their first loss this week. It would be a great, unbelievable story if they were to do it. But I think if you even ask Coach Prime, we're probably still a handful of players short of being where we really want to be. And that'll be must-see TV because it's Coach Prime. But I think Oregon probably gets over on Colorado this weekend.
And then you have Ohio State, Notre Dame in the prime window. And if you're not happy with that, you can flick over to Penn State, Iowa.
Whiteout. Yeah, that'll be good. Good weekend, good Saturday of college football. So how can we cash in? How can we make some money on this weekend's action in college football on week 3 of the NFL? Well, that's why we bring in PJ Glasser. He's the host of BetQL's Send It In that you can hear in the free-to-download Odyssey app. PJ joins us, as he does, every Wednesday at 3:25. He'll be in tomorrow. Insider calls are presented by BetMGM. Go check out all the latest lines today on the BetMGM app. So that's tomorrow starting at 3:25. We'll talk to PJ.
McDermott McLies. Washington's 2-0.
Yes.
But to
a lot of praise.
Yeah.
A lot of praise. The part of the Washington Commanders that deserves that defensive line is, I think, legit. And I think there are some weapons offensively that the Bills might struggle with. There's not just one, but 2 backs that you have to kind of contain, and they're both equal to or greater than what they've seen so far this year. So we'll see if the Bills' defense can remain up to task in terms of stopping the run. They were pretty impressive against the Raiders, but that was the Raiders. Let's see if Washington... I'm a believer in the psychology of momentum, too. The way Washington won that game, their second home game in a row, it feels like the fans are starting to come back around with new ownership and everything that's gone on there. This isn't going to be as easy as Vegas was. And maybe I'm stating the obvious here.
Yeah.
But you could also be caught... You could view this as a trap game. You could get caught looking ahead. The game that really matters, that's week 4. And that's when Miami comes back to Buffalo. So we'll talk to PJ. We'll share some McDermott McLies. And we'll always have time for your calls as well. If you want to pull up a stool, it's 866-4326 here in the Sports Bar. Again, the Odyssey app or wherever you get your shows, search out the Sports Bar, and you will find us there. And thanks for checking us out on YouTube and Twitch as well at The Fan Rochester. Zach Gelb is on the way next. We're back tomorrow at 3 in the Sports Bar on The Fan.
Odyssey has sports for every fan.